Chapter 419. Demoness explains one heart palm. Jiang Hao let out a sigh as he looked at the beast, which was in a very bad condition. The beast still had some dignity. Hong Yuya never targeted anyone but the beast. It was admirable that it survived the encounter every time. Senior. Jiang Hao turned and respectfully bowed. Hong Yuya was dressed in a red and white gown. Her hair fell down her shoulders and chest. She looked elegant and classy. She was just about to say something when an urgent voice sounded from behind. Beast. My meat bun. Xiao Li even kicked her blanket away and it flew away from the bed. Jiang Hao sighed helplessly. Did she only even dream about food? Hong Yuya looked at Xiao Li and took a step forward. Then she covered Xiao Li with a blanket. In her sleep Xiao Li sniffed. Senior sister? She was half awake and in a daze. How old is she this year? Hong Yuya asked. She's supposed to be 19, Jiang Hao said. The age of dragons differed from that of humans. Xiao Li had never changed even after all these years. She was the same as when she first entered the sect. She hadn't grown at all. She hasn't grown mentally nor physically, Hong Yuya said. Jiang Hao was helpless. He had only requested Xiao Li to stay out of trouble and not cause any commotion. More importantly, it depended on the beast. Currently Xiao Li was growing well. She was fearless in the cliff of broken hearts. The most important thing for her was food. Jiang Hao looked at his chest and realized that the one-heart palm had disappeared. The purpose of this palm technique was for Hong Yuya to travel long distances. From the south to the east, the distance was great. Even Hong Yuya found it difficult to cross it. That's why the one heart was left on him. It allowed them to travel together. However, it seemed like this palm technique could only be used once. Suddenly Jiang Hao thought of something. If he was married to many people across the north, west, east, and south, would it be easier for him to travel great distances with the help of this palm technique? Would it be even more convenient than the golden rings? He wanted to learn this technique. Just as Hong Yuya was about to turn away from the sleeping Xiao Li grabbed her hand in her sleep and hugged it to her. Mom? Jiang Hao was a bit worried. Even if Xiao Li didn't do that intentionally, it was easy for Hong Yuya to get riled up. Are you worried about her? Hong Yuya didn't pull her hand away. She just turned to look at Jiang Hao. Xiao Li is young. She didn't mean to offend you, senior, said Jiang Hao. Has she remained by your side after her parents died? Asked Hong Yuya as she looked at Xiao Li. Jiang Hao thought for a moment. Not exactly. After Xiao Li's parents died, the beast stayed with her and comforted her. I'm not good at that, so I couldn't do much for her. Xiao Li tightly clung to Hong Yuya's hand and didn't let go. Hong Yuya moved a bit closer to her. Why would someone like you stay in a demonic sect? Hong Yuya gestured for Jiang Hao to stand beside her. Senior, you must be kidding, said Jiang Hao. That doesn't have anything to do with where I am. You're easily influenced by emotions, Hong Yuya said calmly. Emotions. Jiang Hao thought of Xiao Li's old parents who were struggling with their health. They held on and waited for Xiao Li to return home every time. He also thought of Lin Ji's mother. Even though she was suffering from a serious illness, she traveled dozens of miles to get a protective talisman for her child. She bore the burden until she heard the good news. After that she finally let go. He thought of his stepmother and his family. Though his memories of them weren't very vivid, he was determined not to forget. Regardless of whether they were kind or harsh to him, he wanted to see them again. He didn't even know why he wanted it, but he wanted to see them one last time anyway. Jiang Hao shook his head. Senior, you must be joking. His weaknesses were too obvious, and for him, that was a disaster. Hong Yuya glanced at him in front of her and didn't think much of his lie. Were you just thinking about the palm technique on your chest? She asked. Jiang Hao didn't answer. He was thinking about it, but he didn't dare voice his thoughts. The technique is called the one-heart palm. Do you know the conditions for activating it? Hong Yuya asked. No. Jiang Hao shook his head. The one-heart palm requires a relationship between a man and a woman for it to activate successfully. To use it, you just need to leave an imprint on the body like I did earlier, Hong Yuya said. Jiang Hao didn't respond. He already knew all of this. Are you thinking that once you learn this technique and have a relationship with many women, you can go anywhere? Hong Yuya sneered. Why do you think it's called the one-heart palm and not the many-hearts palm? If you have a relationship with a second person, the one-heart palm can't be used. So once you've mastered it, you can only use it on me. Do you still want to learn? Hong Yuya smiled sinisterly. Jiang Hao lowered his head and didn't answer. He did want to learn it. If there was danger, he could immediately go to Hong Yuya. Even if she was too terrifying and might be unpredictable, she was his safe bet. If he was on the brink of death, going to Hong Yuya would undoubtedly provide a way out. However, earning it was one thing. Leaving an imprint on someone else's body was another. Hong Yuya had left an imprint on his chest. He didn't dare do the same to her. That would turn out to be deadly. With a sigh, Jiang Hao also gave up on the idea of learning it. Red Yuya didn't say anything either. She just watched Xiaoli. After a while, Xiaoli finally let go of her hand and went back to dreaming about food. Hong Yuya pulled her hand back and disappeared with Jiang Hao. Ah! The spirit beast wailed and held its face in pain. Then it looked around. Beast, what's wrong with you? Xiaoli was startled awake. I thought the master was here, said the beast. Where? Xiaoli looked around but didn't see anyone. She sniffed again but didn't smell anything. She looked at the spirit beast. Your face is swollen again. That is a favor from an acquaintance. The master must be nearby. Jiang Hao had already arrived at the street. The place was brightly lit. It was a city that never slept. Star Moon City. It's near the Bright Moon sect. It's said that many sects gather here, Jiang Hao said. It's busier than the cities you've visited before, Hong Yuya said. Indeed, it was bustling. Jiang Hao was amazed. The streets were paved with jade and stone, and towering pavilions filled the area. Everything looked beautiful. The entire city seemed to have formed naturally, and its grandeur was impeccable. It looked very festive. The city was truly remarkable. Where do you plan to go, senior? Asked Jiang Hao. Go where? Hong Yuya looked at him with a smile. Haven't we hung out before? Jiang Hao was momentarily stunned. Were they just going to observe and not get involved? That was fine too, as it wouldn't affect his plans for later. However, her sudden appearance had disrupted his arrangements a bit. He needed to find a place to buy some tea first. Chapter 420. You know how to bargain? Jiang Hao walked into a pavilion somewhat helplessly. He thought he would find a place for Hong Yuya to stay and go out alone to buy tea. Unfortunately, Hong Yuya came along with him to the city. He had no choice but to take her along to buy tea leaves. The pavilion didn't look very big, so Jiang Hao dared to explore it. He was worried that the price for the tea would be too expensive here than at the Heavenly Note sect. The place was filled with spirit tea. No one was there to welcome him, so he explored the place alone. Soon he saw the 1,000-flower tea. It was priced at 181 spirit stones. It was unexpectedly cheaper, but the minimum purchase was 25 grams. If he bought and resold it, he could make a decent amount of money. Then he saw Snow Queen Spring, which was priced at 70 spirit stones for 5 grams. That was 20 spirit stones more expensive than what he bought at his sect. If he could set up a stall here, he could sell it for 60 and still make a profit. He could fully utilize the golden rings and come here to sell things. Leaving the sect wouldn't be too difficult either. He could take on a mission from the law enforcement hall and set aside 2,000 or 3,000 spirit stones as compensation. But unfortunately, nothing was that simple. Tea leaves weren't easy to sell either. What would you like to buy, fellow disciples? Asked a young woman. She was at the early stage of the Golden Core realm. Was this all a Golden Core realm cultivator capable of? It made sense somehow. The city was crowded and there wasn't much opportunity. Competition was fierce. Help me get. The moment Hong Yuya spoke, Jiang Hao felt anxious. Ancient spirit tea, he said hurriedly. He had seen that tea in the Heavenly Note sect before. It was priced at 500 spirit stones for 5 grams. All right, please follow me. The young woman was quite surprised, but she nodded and smiled. Jiang Hao felt a chill run down his spine. He didn't dare to turn around. If Red Yuya had just asked for red azure tea, he would have gone bankrupt. He could only cut her off. Fortunately, it seemed that ancient spirit tea still met her standards. The woman prepared to brew a pot of tea. Please have a taste and check the quality first. Jiang Hao and Hong Yuya sat down and waited. Only after they were seated did the young woman sit down. She was very polite and professional, which surprised Jiang Hao. She was at the Golden Core realm, while they only displayed their cultivation at the Foundation Establishment realm. Hong Yuya must have suppressed her cultivation to be on par with his. After a while, a pot of ancient spirit tea was ready. The woman poured them each a cup. Please try it. If you like it, you can buy the tea. If not, then this pot of tea can be considered a gift from the pavilion. Jiang Hao's attention wasn't on the tea but on the brewing process. It was rather complicated. He picked up the cup, and the fragrance wafted into his nose. He took a sip. It was slightly bitter. As it cooled down, he felt the spiritual energy surge into his body. It gave him the feeling of being among the mountains and rivers. This tea was good. Jiang Hao turned to look at Hong Yuya. At this moment, the cup had just left her lips. This is average quality. The young woman was surprised. She smiled. Your assessment is similar to our pavilion masters. I can lower the price by 30 spirit stones. It'll be 450 spirit stones now. What do the two of you think? Hong Yuya didn't say anything. The woman turned to Jiang Hao. He hadn't expected her to lower the price. In the end, he bought 50 g of ancient spirit tea and 50 g of red sleeve tea. He got a discount of another 80 spirit stones. In total, it cost him 5,300 spirit stones for everything. The tea should last until the end of the trip. Now he was left with 11,168 spirit stones. All the spirit stones he earned over 2 years were spent here. After getting used to the surroundings, he decided to find a place to set up a stall and sell his goods. He hoped to accumulate enough spirit stones for the incarnation of the immortal peach tree. He had one concern. His cultivation realm was in the middle stage of the soul ascension realm. He didn't know if it would be enough to set up a stall here. After all, this was a city near the Bright Moon sect. If someone were to cause trouble, they might be at the soul ascension realm or higher. He needed to be prepared. When they left the pavilion, Hong Yuya looked at him. You know how to bargain. It can save some spirit stones. Jiang Hao nodded. But what if she had refused to sell it? Hong Yuya asked. That's all right. We never know until we try after all, Jiang Hao said. I never saw you take a gamble before. Well, it's different. Gambles include risks. I just want to be careful with certain things, said Jiang Hao. How old are you this year? 30. Hong Yuya fell silent. She seemed deep in thought. Jiang Hao didn't know what she was thinking. But it meant that the two of them had known each other for 10 years, and soon it would be 11. 11 years had swiftly passed by. Where do you want to go next, senior? Jiang Hao asked. Hong Yuya was silent for a while, then she said, Let's go to the riverside. It was nighttime and the stars and moon were radiant in the sky. At the riverside of Star Moon City, the reflection of the stars fell on the water's surface. Jiang Hao rented a boat. Hong Yuya stood at the bow of the boat, while he ferried the boat at the stern. In the darkness of the night, Jiang Hao gently sailed the boat through the river. A gentle breeze rustled Hong Yuya's hair, and her robes swayed lightly. She looked ethereal. Ha ha ha. A sudden voice echoed. Jiang Hao turned to see a man standing on another boat nearby. He was drinking wine and laughing merrily. However, he seemed somewhat puzzled. When did I find myself on the sea of stars again? Ah. The stars on the water are quite something, though a bit dizzying. This is good wine. Ah. The man was a bit incoherent. He seemed to be drunk. Hong Yuya also looked at him. She heard a resigned voice behind her. Unaware of the heavens while drunk and sound asleep while crossing the Milky Way. She looked at Jiang Hao in surprise. How do you know that? My father was a scholar, so I learned some things, said Jiang Hao. His memory of his father was quite vague. He only remembered his father occasionally going out to sell calligraphy. Now that he thought about it, the business must have been good. The family had lived well. Although his meals were quite plain because his stepmother didn't give him much. At this moment, a figure descended from the sky and stood on the surface of the river. He gazed at Jiang Hao. Apologies for the interruption, said the middle-aged man politely. May I ask if the poem you just recited was composed by you, fellow disciple? Jiang Hao greeted him politely. Then he shook his head. Senior, you've misunderstood. That was a line of poetry I heard somewhere before. I'm not knowledgeable about such matters. The person's aura was restrained, so it was difficult to discern their cultivation realm, but he emanated a certain kind of pressure. This was definitely not an ordinary cultivator. Even the drunk person from before was the same. Many powerful cultivators had gathered here. If it weren't for the Bright Moon sect monitoring the place, things might have gotten out of hand. Chapter 421. We were tricked. Ha ha ha. Isn't that so? The middle-aged man expressed some regret. I wonder who composed it. Could you introduce me to the author? Jiang Hao shook his head. He probably passed away. I see. The middle-aged man didn't press him further but raised the wine bottle in his hand. Would you care for some wine, fellow disciple? Thank you for your kind offer, but I don't drink, Jiang Hao said. It seems it really wasn't your poem. What a pity, the middle-aged man sighed in disappointment. Jiang Hao didn't say anything. Well then, sorry for bothering you. The middle-aged man turned and walked away. Jiang Hao paid no mind and moved away from the area and continued downstream. Hong Yuye didn't turn around and he didn't dare to look at her either. The wooden boat didn't need to be returned, so they left it downstream. The middle-aged man watched the boat leave and stood beside the drunken man. Such a shame, really a pity? The intoxicated man lay at the bow of the boat and gazed at his reflection in the water. He chuckled. Unaware of the heavens while drunk. Sound asleep while crossing the Milky Way. I like it. Ha ha ha. His hair was disheveled and his eyes were unfocused. He was pretty good looking. The middle-aged man beside him had a bit of stubble. He looked wise. Let's see where this poem came from. With a wave of his hand, the starry river surged and the constellations shifted. Soon he was left dumbfounded in place. Where are we? The middle-aged man asked. The man at the bow of the boat suddenly burst into laughter. Right here. We were tricked. Ah. He laughed so hard that he couldn't stop. He found it amusing that they were deceived. He trembled with laughter and suddenly fell into the water. The middle-aged man paid no attention to his cries for help. It really is him. It seems he doesn't like us. No, I should go see where they are and pay them a visit. First, ugh, save me please. The drunk man struggled in the water. Early the next morning Jiang Hao walked out of the inn. After returning from the river yesterday, they found an inn. It cost 3 spirit stones for 1 night. They had taken 2 rooms. The location was a bit secluded, and it was not a popular inn, but the facilities were decent. It cost them 6 spirit stones a day for 2 rooms. That was about 180 spirit stones a month. The sex resources for 3 months wouldn't be enough to cover 1 month's stay here. In places with more people, some things were cheap while others were expensive. Lodging shouldn't be a necessity for cultivators, but the prices were still steep. The entire inn was covered by formations. That morning he brewed tea for Hong Yuya and bought some pastries. After that, he wanted to go out and attend to his own matters. First, he needed to find a place to set up his stall. Then he wanted to visit the Twin City Peak. It was already May. In another month, the Tao conference would take place. He had to be present then. Otherwise the mission would fail. In a few days the gathering would likely begin again. Xing might inquire about their location to make sure they could arrive on time. The Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment wasn't a small matter. No one dared to be careless. During the day the streets were bustling with more people than at night. People roamed the streets in groups of 2s and 3s. Everything seemed normal. After a while, Jiang Hao found a spot for his stall, which required spirit stones to activate. After getting a rough idea of the prices, he spent 10 spirit stones to open the stall for the day. This time he displayed spirit herbs, pill formulas, pills, magical treasures and talismans in his stall. He didn't bring out the blood gourd. It might come in handy, so he wanted to keep it. Before long, a woman appeared at his stall. She looked at the pull formula. How much is this? 3,000 spirit stones, Jiang Hao said. He wasn't sure about the value of the pill furnace in other places, but here it wasn't worth much. 3,000 was the average price. Others were selling it for less. This is too expensive. The woman took a quick look and put the furnace down. It seemed she didn't even intend to negotiate. Jiang Hao was speechless. He could only wait. How much for a healing talisman? Asked a young man. After hearing the price, the person walked away. Too pricey. Jiang Hao had priced the items according to the standards of the Bright Moon sect. He had also asked around about the prices here. While they might be a bit cheaper, the difference wasn't that significant. He didn't know why these people found his things so expensive. Helplessly, he could only continue to wait. By afternoon, Jiang Hao hadn't sold anything yet. Doing business was proving more difficult than he had anticipated. Although many people asked about his products, they didn't buy any. It was either too expensive or the items were too ordinary. It wasn't until evening that he finally understood what was happening. He lacked competitiveness. His items were commonplace and abundant in this place. Anybody could find cheaper options at another stall. Even if the prices were similar, the other vendors had a variety of the same product. There was simply no reason for anyone to choose him. Looks like I need to lower the prices. But he wasn't in a rush. He closed his stall and walked around. He asked for items and their prices to compare them to his own. He couldn't set the price too low after all. At the same time, he wanted to assess the strengths of these vendors so he could prevent them from retaliating. In the end, he decided to raise his cultivation to the middle stage of the primordial spirit realm and lower the prices for his items. He would only lower the items for the products that weren't available here. And by leveraging these lower prices, he could encourage people to buy other things as well. After bringing some food back to the inn, Jiang Hao once again set up his stall. At night, with more people around, he didn't slack off. Luckily, the stall was reserved for the whole day so he could use it any time. "How much is this pill furnace?" asked a woman. 2,300, Jiang Hao said. 2. The woman was about to put it down when she caught herself. She didn't voice her thoughts but picked up the pill furnace again to examine it more closely. This time she was looking at it with great interest. After making sure the quality was decent, she doubted that she had heard wrong. "How much for this in spirit stones?" 2,300, Jiang Hao said again. He had seen similar pill furnaces before. The lowest price for it in this area was 2,800. Initially he had priced it at 3,000, which was a fair valuation. Now he was offering it at a cheaper rate than the market price. Anyone who knew the market wouldn't change their vendor unless they got a better deal. "What about these pill formulas?" The woman didn't put down the pill furnace this time. 500 for one, Jiang Hao said. The pill formula was of the gold core realm. It was ordinary but still worth 500 spirit stones. "What about these spirit herbs?" she asked again. In the end, the woman spent 7,000 spirit stones in purchasing the pill furnace, some spirit herbs formulas and pills. With 7,000 spirit stones in hand, Jiang Hao sighed in relief. He realized that the items in Yu Xian's storage treasures were very valuable. There was also a spirit sword. At the very least, it could be sold for 4,000 or 5,000 spirit stones. In the sect, it would fetch 5,000 or 6,000. Prices for magical treasures were generally lower here. In the end, he sold the spirit sword for a lower price too. Unfortunately, the person only bought the sword and nothing else. Fortunately, 3,500 spirit stones for a spirit sword wasn't much of a loss. He now had a total of 21,600 spirit stones. At this point, even though he still had spirit herbs and pills to sell, Jiang Hao wanted to find a place that traded in magical treasures. He still had a fair number of spirit swords to get rid of. "You want to sell magical treasures to us?" The woman at the counter of one of the pavilions that dealt with magical treasures was amused. "We don't buy regular magical treasures here. What kind of magical treasure do you have?" Jiang Hao took out a spirit sword. It was just an ordinary one. "This spirit sword is priced at 10 spirit stones here, but we're not interested." The woman shook their head. "I can sell it to you for 4 spirit stones each and I have several thousands of them," Jiang Hao said. The woman at the counter was taken aback. "Several thousand. Fellow disciple, please come this way," the woman said politely and led the way. Chapter 422, True Harmony. "Esteemed guest, please take care," said the woman as she bid him farewell. "Next time you have magical treasures, please consider us first. The prices are negotiable." Jiang Hao gave a simple nod in return and turned to leave. This time he had sold all the spirit swords, spirit sabers and spirit spears. He had over 4,000 spirit weapons. He sold them all and earned around 16,000 spirit stones. Accumulating a lot of spirit weapons over the years wasn't without benefits. He still had a few daggers left but he kept them for sneak attacks. Now he had over 37,000 spirit stones. The immortal peach tree would cost over 20,000 or 30,000 spirit stones for the next incarnation. He would still be left with several thousand spirit stones after that. For a moment he didn't know how to spend it all. Since he had reached a higher realm in cultivation, some spirit herbs no longer produced enough bubbles to help him in his cultivation. The further he went, the more he needed divine and sacred items to trigger blue bubbles. Even high-grade spirit herb seeds, which had a high probability of producing blue bubbles, had a much lower chance now. After returning, I need to find a way to get the Candlelight Pill Pavilion to send me some high-grade seeds for nurturing. If I somehow display a golden core realm cultivation, they might agree willingly. It was already late at night and he should be heading back. However, on his way back, 2 people blocked his path. One was a disheveled-haired youth, and the other was a middle-aged man with a scruffy beard. Jiang Hao remembered these 2. He had met them both during that time on the boat. Their strength exceeded his expectations. "Fellow disciple, we meet again. It seems fate is at work." The middle-aged man smiled. "I am Wuxia. I'm just a commoner who enjoys poems." The disheveled youth hiccuped. "Oh, Xiqing. I am Jianghao Tian. What can I do for you, seniors?" Jianghao asked. It was clear they had come looking for him. "We want to ask, does the poet you mentioned have any more verses in that poem?" Wuxia asked politely. "I only remember that one verse," Jianghao said truthfully. "Just one verse." Wuxia sighed. "Will you be able to remember the rest of the verses?" Jianghao frowned. The person seemed to be implying something. "Does he think I composed the poem?" Jianghao felt troubled. Such powerful individuals couldn't be easily fooled by a cultivator like him. It would be best to clarify the situation as soon as possible. "Senior, you might have misunderstood. I didn't compose the poem," Jianghao said. "Then, is it the young woman from yesterday?" Xiqing asked. "Young woman?" Jianghao's heart raced, but he remained calm. "Not quite. It was composed by a deceased senior." Wuxia and Xiqing exchanged a glance. They felt that Jianghao wasn't being dishonest. Had they made a mistake? The two invited Jianghao to their loft for a drink. When an expert extended an invitation, he could only go along. With Hong Yuye not around, he needed to be cautious in the presence of such seniors. Provoking them wouldn't benefit him in any way. Indeed, the city was brimming with formidable experts. At the riverside loft, Jianghao and the two sat by the window. It overlooked the boats sailing on the river. It was quite lively tonight, with many figures bustling about on the largest boat. "It's a wonderful thing to be young. I heard that there's a young woman on that boat, and she is exceptionally talented. I wonder if any of you will get to meet her," Wuxia said with a smile. "This wine is just average." Xiqing shook his head. Jianghao focused on his food. As for the bustling boat below, he wasn't interested at all. In his eyes, even the most extraordinary woman was no different from an ordinary one. "Aren't you curious about this young woman?" Wuxia asked. "She's just the alchemist from the Bright Moon sect. She shows off a little magic here and there. Her talent isn't that remarkable," Xiqing casually said. "Oh? Then who would you consider truly remarkable?" Wuxia asked. "Could it be that you fancy that newly recruited young woman?" "She's still young and can't be considered truly remarkable. Mainly because she lacks her own opinions. Without unique ideas that leave an impact, she can't truly be called remarkable." Xiqing sipped his wine. "You should just focus on your drink," Wuxia said. "Don't be so critical. When you're young, that doesn't apply. It's impressive to be exceptionally talented to astound their peers." He looked at Jianghao. "What do you think, fellow disciple?" "I think both perspectives are valid," said Jianghao. Wuxia burst into laughter but didn't press him further. Instead, he looked at the large boat outside. At that moment, a figure flew out from the boat. The first to emerge was a woman dressed in white. She appeared ethereal under the moonlight. Following closely behind was a scholarly-looking man. The two of them seemed to be comparing their movement techniques. Soul Ascension Realm? Jianghao was surprised. They were weaker than he had anticipated. He had thought the majority of experts on this boat would be at the Return to Void Realm. It seemed that wasn't the case everywhere. This made him feel safer. At least he wouldn't easily encounter those above the Soul Ascension Realm. If they were at the Soul Ascension Realm, he could afford to escape. After all, with the 9 Heavens battle armor and the golden rings, he would have some means to flee from danger. However, he couldn't be reckless. A moment of carelessness might mean severe injuries that he wouldn't be able to recover from. "Is that young woman playing games with someone? Her movement technique is quite impressive," Wuxia said. Xiqing squinted his eyes and glanced outside. "Her 1,000 dragon step isn't bad. As for the person behind her, is he using the light and dust technique from the Astronomical Academy?" "Light and dust?" Jianghao asked. "You don't know? That's normal. Few people practice light and dust after all," Wuxia said. Jianghao squinted and looked at the man more carefully. There was indeed a vague resemblance in the technique he used. However, it was just a faint similarity and everything else was completely different. He could barely keep up. The reason why the man was able to keep up with the woman so far was solely due to his cultivation advantage. The 1,000 dragon step was quite formidable, while light and dust from the Astronomical Academy was rather ordinary. "So, this is light and dust technique," Jiang Hao sighed. This technique was different from the one he practiced. Speaking of light and dust, according to the people from the Astronomical Academy, it's an extremely powerful body technique, but no matter how their people practice it, it ends up like this. It's not too bad, but it's not outstanding either, Wuxia said. Is it a lost technique? Jiang Hao asked. Not exactly. This body technique was learned by a relatively senior disciple of the Astronomical Academy while he was outside. It was a fortuitous encounter. When he returned with it, he claimed it could astonish the world. Unfortunately, he spent his whole life without achieving much with it. In the end, he left it within the Astronomical Academy for others to learn. He hoped someone would fulfill his last wish and achieve true harmony with the light, said Wuxia. Unfortunately, after so many years, it's still the same. No matter how one learns it, it remains like this. Maybe he didn't learn it fully, or perhaps he created it himself. Either way, the end result is the same. That person was so sure when he spoke about it. It didn't sound like he was lying. I'm also quite curious about the light and dust technique that he envisioned, said Xicheng. I see. Jiang Hao nodded. It seemed that he had learned the complete light and dust technique. Just a moment ago, he was worried about being accused of stealing the Astronomical Academy's technique. Now, it seemed they had learned it from outside their academy as well. In that case, there was nothing to worry about. Chapter 423, Don't you feel an impulse to compose a poem? Jiang Hao and the two seniors watched the two people chasing each other in the sky. They didn't use any other techniques. They just flashed by in the sky like stars. It was breathtaking. Boom. The two figures suddenly clashed. Immediately after, the man from the Astronomical Academy fell. With a thud, he crashed into Jiang Hao and the others. Thankfully, the loft wasn't damaged. Fellow disciples, did you lose? Wuxia asked with a smile. Isn't it obvious? Xicheng munched on some peanuts. Jiang Hao remained silent. The opponent was at the middle stage of Soul Ascension realm, which was roughly equivalent to his own strength. It was best to avoid unnecessary interactions. However, he was quite curious about how he appeared right now. Had these two seniors seen through him? Hong Yuye hadn't given him any indication that she had seen through him. The young man looked at them. Apologies, seniors. He hesitated for a moment. It was probably because he noticed that one of them was at the late stage of the Foundation Establishment realm. Jiang Hao understood the young man's hesitation. He always displayed his cultivation realm at the late stage of the Foundation Establishment realm. At first, he had displayed his cultivation at the peak of Foundation Establishment realm, but Hong Yuye seemed to prefer it when he was at the late stage. So he lowered his realm. It was probably because Hong Yuye might have set her cultivation at the peak of the Foundation Establishment realm. If he set it at the late stage, then he would be the junior and she would be the senior. He didn't mind this arrangement. Your talent is not bad. Why are you so determined to be just like everyone else and cultivate the light and dust technique? Wuxia asked. The young man sighed. I think it was my arrogance. I wanted to be the one to surpass everyone else who had failed at this. At that point, the woman also landed in front of the loft. Apologies for disturbing you, seniors. No problem. Xicheng waved his hand. We three just happened to be sitting here. Don't worry. Wahan nodded. She was quite puzzled as she looked at Jiang Hao. She didn't understand why someone at the late stage of the Foundation Establishment realm was present with the other two seniors. Then she respectfully said, Then I won't disturb you anymore. Wait a moment. Since we're here anyway, it would be stingy of us not to give you some guidance. Wuxia looked at Xicheng and Jiang Hao. Which one of you will come with me? My abilities are limited, Jiang Hao said. He couldn't guide these people. These people were in the Soul Ascension realm and were from immortal sections. What authority did he even have to provide them with guidance? These two might have a slightly better impression of him due to Hong Yuye's influence. My abilities are also limited, Xicheng said. Huahan thought Jiang Hao was being honest, but when the other senior said the same, she was confused. She wondered if this Foundation Establishment realm cultivator could really provide her with some guidance. The disciples of the Astronomical Academy remained silent. Wuxia looked at Huahan. All right then, you can choose one of us at random. If they're willing to guide you, it's your fate. If not, then it's not meant to be. Wuxia's casual approach made Jiang Hao feel that the strong were often unpredictable. It would be best to choose Senior Wuxia. After all, he was the one who initiated this. Huahan fell silent for a moment, then she looked at Jiang Hao. Following that, her white sleeves flicked, and she whisked away the half-moon blade Jiang Hao had placed at the side. "Senior, please pardon me." Instantly, she activated the myriad dragon travel technique and left. Jiang Hao was speechless. That blade had cost him 3,000 spirit stones. He hadn't expected his saber to be snatched away. This kid doesn't know her own limit. Si Qing sighed. "Fellow disciple, do you want to intervene or should I?" asked Wuxia. "I'll handle it," Jiang Hao said helplessly. The opponent was at the early stage of the soul ascension realm. Luckily he could keep up. Then his cultivation changed. He was now also at the early stage of the soul ascension realm. This surprised He Gu from the Astronomical Academy. Wuxia and Si Qing were not surprised. They seemed interested in seeing how Jiang Hao would retrieve the item. Under the moonlight, a faint light radiated from Jiang Hao's body, but it quickly became as insignificant as dust. Soon he vanished from his spot. He Gu didn't know how it was possible, but Jiang Hao seemed to be everywhere in the moonlight and nowhere at all. He Gu felt deeply moved. He felt that he was looking at something extraordinary. Yet he couldn't put a finger on it. At this moment, Si Qing opened his mouth in astonishment. "Light and dust?" "Indeed. Light and dust." Wuxia was also surprised. They suddenly understood why Jiang Hao had asked about the light and dust technique before. It turned out this was how light and dust was supposed to be truly used. To comprehend the heavens and the earth with one state of mind, to merge with them and borrow power from them. Impressive. I wonder how it will be at its peak. Wuxia looked at the drunk man next to him with a smile. "Weren't you just saying you wanted to witness what true harmony with light and dust looks like? Walking through the world while hiding among the crowd." Su Qing chuckled. It is no wonder he seemed extraordinary. At this moment He Gu was filled with excitement. This is what light and dust is supposed to be like. Just a glance told him it was real. To be in harmony with the light and the dust at the same time. The reason he couldn't learn it properly was because he couldn't enter the right state of mind. In the next instant Jiang Hao was back. The blade was at his side again. Hua Han, who was still flying in the sky, felt puzzled. But when she noticed the blade was missing, she knew that Jiang Hao had already taken action. Returning to the loft, she assumed the two seniors had done it. However, before she could speak, He Gu suddenly bowed to Jiang Hao. "Thank you so much, senior. It was an honor to see you do that." Jiang Hao didn't know what to say. He had two movement techniques that he used. One was demonic sound 1,000 miles and the other one was light and dust technique. Demonic sound 1,000 miles was too obvious, so he had chosen to use light and dust. Hua Han was astonished. She didn't even know what had happened. "All right. That's it for today." Si Qing waved his hand and the two people returned to their boat. "Fellow disciple, what are you doing at the Bright Moon sect?" Wuxia asked. "I am here for the Tao conference," said Jiang Hao. "Do you know the purpose of this conference?" Wuxia asked. Jiang Hao shook his head. Being too truthful might lead to trouble. Wuxia didn't mind. He looked at the beautiful scenery below. "Don't you feel an impulse to compose a poem at such a beautiful scene?" "They still don't believe that I didn't write that poem." Jiang Hao felt helpless. Afterward they pulled Jiang Hao onto a boat. In the end he still didn't compose a poem. They were a bit disappointed. After that Jiang Hao bid them farewell. This way they probably wouldn't bother him anymore. Even if they really believed that he wrote that poem, he was truly out of ideas. "Take this with you." Si Qing tossed him a jade pendant. "This item will allow you to enter the Bright Moon sect and participate in the Tao conference." "Thank you, senior." Jiang Hao was a bit surprised but still nodded in gratitude. Then he turned and left. In the Eternal Traveler Inn, Chu Chuan felt restless. He looked at the beast before him and sought its advice. "Lord Beast, what should I do tomorrow so that Chu Jia won't think I'm poor?" Chapter 424. Lord Beast is influential. The spirit beast stood on the table and said solemnly, "As long as you are spiritually rich, your Chu Jia won't ever see you as a poor wretch." "Spiritually rich?" Chu Chuan asked. He didn't understand. "Clothes," Shaoli said. "My mother used to tell me not to wear torn clothes, or else people would think our family can't afford clothes, which means we're very poor. But my parents never bought clothes for themselves. They always bought them for me." Her voice trembled as she spoke. Chu Chuan felt that Shaoli was still like a child. After all these years she hadn't grown much taller. He was now much taller than Shaoli, but unfortunately he still couldn't match her in strength. Now that Chu Chuan had advanced to the Foundation Establishment realm, he was excited. However, as he got closer to his goal, the only thing that worried him was seeing Chu Jie again. He couldn't quite imagine what Chu Jie might look like now. The next day Chu Chuan said, "Spirit Beast, I'm setting off. How about, you come with me?" He was dressed in some decent outfit that he had bought yesterday. It had cost him 2 spirit stones and he felt a bit reluctant. Only the Spirit Beast and Shaoli could afford not to care about spending spirit stones on unnecessary things like these. "Don't worry, Chu Chuan. Although I don't have much else, I do have many friends. Just mention my name when you're out and it will be fine," the Spirit Beast said in assurance. "Really?" Chu Chuan couldn't believe it. However, the Spirit Beast had no reason to deceive him. Seeing Shaoli nodding, he suddenly thought that maybe it would really work. But for such matters, it was better not to use it unless absolutely necessary. After saying goodbye to the Spirit Beast and Shaoli, Chu Chuan took a deep breath and headed to the location. On the way he straightened his clothes and fixed his hair. He was afraid of embarrassing himself if he appeared messy. "Why am I so nervous?" Chu Chuan wondered. After all, he was just meeting Chu Jie. There was no need to be so nervous. Perhaps it was because of his imagination. Chu Jie had become something of a prodigy. They were supposed to meet outside the city on the way to the Bright Moon sect. There was a large tree there. When Chu Chuan arrived, he didn't see anyone. That was expected since he had arrived early. He thought that coming early would help him prepare mentally, but waiting made him feel even more anxious. He kept wondering if Chu Jie would be disappointed and if he would embarrass himself in front of her. Besides these concerns, he also wanted to make a good impression. After some time, Chu Chuan saw a figure approaching. It was a young woman wearing a light blue robe. In just a few breaths they were less than a foot apart. Her hair was tied into a bun. Her skin was as fair as snow. She was beautiful. Although her robe was simple enough, she still looked radiant. It was like she was a moon among the stars. Chu Chuan couldn't believe his eyes. Despite Jiang Hao's repeated warnings that Chu Jie was extraordinary, and she might have changed over the years, Chu Chuan was still taken aback. Her presence was too captivating. It made everyone else feel insignificant. Chu Jie? Chu Chuan stammered. She opened her mouth as if to address him as young master, but she couldn't bring herself to say it. "Just call me Chu Chuan." He smiled awkwardly. Young master," Chu Jie said hesitantly. Chu Chuan smiled softly. "Have you been well? I almost didn't recognize you." "I didn't recognize you either," Chu Jie said. She approached Chu Chuan somewhat awkwardly. "You're different from what I imagined." "What did you imagine?" Chu Chuan asked curiously. "Like some of the seniors here. Elegant and refined." Chu Chuan chuckled. He had always been on the receiving end of beatings. How could he be elegant and refined? "Have I changed a lot?" Chu Jie asked. "Well, yes, in a good way. You stand out like a blossoming flower," Chu Chuan said. Chu Jie nodded absent-mindedly as if she had heard similar compliments many times before. "By the way, since we rarely get to see each other, how about we go shopping? I'll buy you a gift," Chu Chuan said. "Sure." Chu Jie nodded and smiled. "I know a place with beautiful hairpins." "Then let's go," Chu Chuan said. A hairpin was something he could afford. After a while, the two of them arrived at a quaint street with few people. However, Chu Chuan could sense that this place was extraordinary. He couldn't quite put his finger on what made it special. "It's up ahead," Chu Jie said. Chu Chuan nodded and followed along. There was no turning back now. He had over 500 spirit stones on him, so he should be able to buy something nice. Soon they arrived at a shop that sold wooden products. There weren't many customers there. Behind the counter sat a young woman. "This is it. The hairpins here are the most beautiful and they don't have duplicates," Chu Jie said and smiled. Chu Chuan nodded. "Then I'll buy one." Chu Jie looked at some of the things and showed them to Chu Chuan. In the end, she picked a light blue hairpin. Chu Chuan looked at it carefully and realized that it was just an ordinary hairpin. It wasn't a magical treasure. He felt relieved. However, when the receptionist told him the price, he was taken aback. 600 spirit stones? "Yes, 600, the shopkeeper said. Chu Chuan was stunned. How could a simple hairpin cost 600 spirit stones? He only had 570 spirit stones on him. Should he ask Chu Jie to pay for it? That was too embarrassing. Chu Chuan recalled what the spirit beast had told him. "Please, Lord Beast, help me," he whispered. "Huh? Did you say something?" asked the woman at the counter. I was just asking where do I put the spirit stones, said Chu Chuan. His face turned red. Put them here, said the woman as she brought out a treasure bowl. If it's the full amount it'll glow. But if the money is short it'll spit it out. I see, Chu Chuan said awkwardly. He then placed all the spirit stones into the bowl. He was only short by 30. He hoped it could be overlooked. Please, Lord Beast, help me. As soon as Chu Chuan placed all the spirit stones into the bowl, it lit up. That meant the bowl was full of all 600 spirit stones. Huh. Chu Chuan was stunned. Is the spirit beast really that powerful? No thank you. Chu Jia quickly shook her head. The two of them walked out of the store. On the side of the shop, Jiang Hao stood at the entrance. He let out a sigh. Even from a distance he could tell how uncomfortable Chu Chuan had felt. If it weren't for the spirit beast's sudden intervention, Chu Chuan would likely have faced some difficulties. The reason the treasure bowl was filled was that the spirit beast had used its innate talent for deception to supplement the missing spirit stones. When he turned to look at the other side, Shaoli was following along with the spirit beast. Jiang Hao sighed softly. Some things and some people never changed. Chapter 425, A Simple Poem. Watching them leave, Jiang Hao understood that Chu Chuan's journey was just the beginning. When he entered the Bright Moon sect later, he might face some challenges, but those challenges wouldn't crush him. Everything that couldn't kill him would ultimately make him stronger. However, he couldn't predict the direction where those two would end up. The human heart is the most difficult thing to understand. Chu Chuan was somewhat predictable, but he had no knowledge of Chu Jia's personality. It was impossible to guess. Afterward, he began searching for flower petals. Hong Yuya wanted a bath, and he needed to find silver moon petals. The silver moon petals were expensive, but they were also rare. This street was the only place to find them. This street had stalls from seniors of the sect who had nothing better to do. They sold various items including handicrafts, pills, and magical treasures that they didn't want to throw away. Therefore, the prices were uncertain and there were many different things. After searching for a long time, he finally found the silver moon petals. They cost 500 spirit stones per portion, which was relatively cheap. He bought 5 portions in total to ensure he had enough for later. He now had 35,000 spirit stones left. When he returned to the inn, he felt the stone tablet vibrating. It was a gathering scheduled for tonight. It was probably a last-minute meeting related to the Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment. Back at the inn, Hong Yuya was bathing. Jiang Hao faced away from the folding screen as she bathed. To distract himself, he mentioned the gathering. Tonight? Hong Yuya asked. Yes, tonight. Jiang Hao nodded. Soon, the sound of water pouring over her body followed. To avoid thinking too much, he decided to go to the Twin City Peak first to gather information. Do you have a map of the Bright Moon sect? Hong Yuya asked. Yes. Jiang Hao nodded. He had seen one while setting up his stall and bought a copy. It wasn't too expensive, but there were cheaper versions with limited information. Those only covered the surrounding routes and names. When he took it out, the map flew to the folding screen behind him. Where do you want to go? Hong Yuya asked. Twin City Peak, Jiang Hao said. He hoped she would offer some insight. However, she remained silent. It seemed she had nothing to say. The water splashed. Jiang Hao couldn't help but wonder if she was still looking at the map. Turning around might be fatal, so he waited patiently. After a long while, he heard her stepping out of the water. Soon she stood beside him. She was dressed in a red and white gown. A faint fragrance entered his senses. It was somewhat familiar and unfamiliar at the same time. He glanced sideways and saw that her long hair was damp at the tips. Let's go out, Hong Yuya said. She opened the door and walked out. Jiang Hao glanced at the tub. With a wave of his hand, he disposed of the water. Inside the Bright Moon sect, He-Do was deep in thought in one of the courtyards. He felt like he missed something. He paced around and hoped he would figure it out soon. Perhaps it's the state of mind? What kind of state of mind is needed to use light and dust? He-Do understood how to practice it, but he didn't know what he was doing wrong. At this moment, a middle-aged man walked in. Are you still thinking about light and dust? Just give up. It's useless. If it were really that powerful, the one who left the technique behind wouldn't have met a tragic end. No, Senior Chang, you're wrong, He-Do said in excitement. I've seen the real light and dust technique being used. He was nowhere and everywhere at once. Is it a kind of body technique? Chang Zizai asked. Yes, that's right. He-Do nodded. I received guidance from a senior, but I still couldn't comprehend it. Perhaps it's my state of mind that's lacking. The most crucial aspect of light and dust doesn't seem to be the technique itself but the state of mind. State of mind. Chang Zizai shook his head. Many people have a high state of mind, but no one has been able to learn that technique perfectly. Who is this person you're talking about? Well, he thought for a moment and then shook his head. I don't know, but Hua Han from the Bright Moon sect might know. It seems she knew one of the seniors that we met. Tell me the whole thing, Chang Zizai said. He recounted everything that had happened, and Chang Zizai listened attentively. After hearing it all, he was surprised. It seemed that those three individuals were quite something. I need to go and ask, Chang Zizai said. By the way, our disciples have been criticized for morning reading exercises outside the sect. Should we consider suspending it? He asked. No need. It doesn't affect them, Chang Zizai said. But we've been unable to refute their claim and it's quite uncomfortable, he said. Don't worry about it, Chang Zizai said. All right. Has anything else happened lately? Well, not much, but I heard a poem in the Star River. A poem? Yes, or half of one anyway. It goes, unaware of the heavens while drunk. Sound asleep while crossing the Milky Way. Chang Zizai looked surprised but quickly shook his head. It's just a line from a poem. It doesn't mean anything. Focus on your cultivation. He nodded. His mind was focused on light and dust. At night, Jianghao stood atop the Twin City Peak. These mountain peaks were extremely high and offered a wide view of the city below. Is this place truly just a simple location? It looks so grand. Jianghao was amazed. It's at the end, so the location isn't important, Hong Yuye said. She then turned to face him. Tomorrow, let's go and check out the Bright Moon sect. All right. Jianghao nodded. It would be easy to enter with the item given to him by that senior. If he were alone, he might not dare to use it, but with Hong Yuye it was much safer. They stayed on the mountain peak until midnight when the gathering finally began. Jianghao didn't hesitate and took out the stone tablet and entered it. Soon all four of them were gathered there. This time, Dan Yuan didn't appear. This is an impromptu gathering. It seems Senior Dan Yuan has urgent matters to attend to, Xing said. Lu and Gue weren't surprised. It seemed that such things had happened before. Jianghao remained silent. Have you all arrived? Xing asked. I'm already in Star Moon City, Gue said. I'm here too, Jianghao said. From what I know, many people outside are aware of the Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment. Although many hope for success, some want to take advantage and disrupt it, Xing said as he looked at Jianghao and Gue. So, it could be quite dangerous, but your area isn't that important, so the level of danger will be reduced. However, I'm not sure if it's suitable for you. Have you checked out the location? I have no issues. But there's something I need to remind you. I'll be entering that area, and it's best if your people don't get too close. Otherwise, I can't guarantee their safety, Gue said. No problem. Xing nodded. Then he turned to Jianghao. What about you, Jing? I'm fine with it, Jianghao said. Hong Yuye hadn't made any requests. That being said, I must remind you that the end of all things might also participate. They're unpredictable, and your situation may not be as optimistic as you expect, Lu said. Jianghao, on the other hand, felt delighted. This might be an opportunity to capture someone from the end of all things. It would greatly help with his investigation. After all, it was more dangerous for him if he made no progress in this undercover task. Chapter 426. In Need of an Extraordinary Genius. It wasn't surprising that the end of all things was involved, given their goal of destruction. The Bright Moon sect should be able to handle them. However, it was a bit troublesome because they were everywhere, and no one knew if they had already entered the Bright Moon sect. Anyone from any sect could potentially be a member of the end of all things. It's early June right now. You'll need to go to the respective areas. I'm not entirely sure how long you'll need to stay there, but it might tentatively be 3 months at most, Xing said. 3 months without doing anything is a bit boring. Can we at least watch the Tao conference? Asked Gue. You can use formations to teleport, or you can enter the Bright Moon sect during regular times to watch the conference. The most crucial part is being there during the critical moments, Xing said. Jianghao nodded. This arrangement was convenient for him. Getting there was easy. Moreover, he had the golden rings, so it was convenient. If Hong Yuye decided to lend a hand, it would be even easier. I think there might be quite a few people taking action this time. I've heard some rumors that suggest that the Bright Moon sect is planning to seize others' luck to complete their Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment. This is not good news and could potentially affect the Tao conference, Lu said. I've heard about it too, but many people tend to believe rumors rather than the confirmations provided by the sects, Gui said. Jiang Hao hadn't heard of such rumors. Even if he had, he wouldn't have believed them. They were just using the situation to their advantage. If there were any issues, Hong Yuya would have told him. Besides, depriving others of their luck was not as easy and contradicted the principles of Heavenly Tao. It was impossible to complete the Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment and become a person of great luck. That's indeed what I've heard. It was probably spread by the fallen immortal clan. If things get too serious, it might affect the success of the Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment. However, the current sect master of the Bright Moon sect has gone to the Clear Sky School. It seems he intends to invite Shang to assist with the Heavenly Tao. I believe the genius in the corpse realm could also accomplish this, but we don't know where they are. Do any of you have any information about that? Xing asked. He looked at Gui and Jiang Hao. They were the only ones who had entered the corpse realm. Unfortunately, both of them shook their heads. Jiang Hao knew that the extraordinary genius was probably Hong Yuye because he had been there with her. Since she was attending the conference, there should be no problem. There was no need for Shang'an to be involved. After discussing some more details about the Bright Moon sect, Lu brought up something important. There's something I need to remind you all of. Do you remember the changes in the seabed? It seems someone has entered it and discovered that it's not about a treasure, but about someone breaking a seal. This happened several years ago. Also, the issue with the small island that we discussed earlier has been uncovered. It was someone from the end of all things searching for something. Now they are under attack. Although it was destroyed, it's unclear whether they found what they were looking for. Jiang Hao grew concerned. Earth Extreme Silent Pearl, he said. It made sense that they would search for the Earth Extreme Silent Pearl using the remnants of the Earth Extreme Heart Devouring Pearl. This was a matter that Jiang Hao could only remind them of. He couldn't get involved. However, it left others feeling concerned. Jiang Hao's words shocked everyone. He had mentioned it before too and told them that the end of all things was looking for it. Gui was aghast. Looks like I need to pay more attention to this. Lu sighed. This time he was in trouble overseas. After some more discussion, they ended the gathering. When Jiang Hao woke up, he saw the moonlight. Under the moonlight stood an elegant person with her hair swaying in the wind. There was also a faint fragrance in the air. When she turned around, her gaze was calm. She said, "Tell me everything." Her eyes, even though calm, were still astonishing under the moonlight. After taking a deep breath, Jiang Hao began to tell her everything about the Bright Moon sect, the arrangements made by Xing, the rumors, and the sect's response. Throughout his explanation, Hong Yuye remained silent. When he mentioned the Earth Extreme Silent Pearl, she raised an eyebrow. Do you think the pearl is overseas? Isn't it? Jiang Hao was a bit surprised. However, Hong Yuye didn't respond. Instead, she smiled mysteriously. For a moment, Jiang Hao felt uneasy but couldn't get an answer. Helplessly, he continued to speak about other matters. Apart from the Earth Extreme Silent Pearl, they didn't need to pay much attention to anything else for now. The Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment would require patience. They didn't need to worry too much about what might happen. The Bright Moon sect would handle it on their own. They could only do what was within their capabilities. Once they had confirmed the situation, they would proceed to the Bright Moon sect. Ordinary people couldn't approach the Bright Moon sect easily, as it was covered by formations. However, since the Tao conference was happening, finding the Bright Moon sect was now easier. Nevertheless, not just anyone could enter the sect's gates. Before dawn, they arrived at the Bright Moon sect's gate. It was a passageway leading to the mountains. The moon cast silvery shadows. Jiang Hao was astonished. It was indeed different from the gates of the Heavenly Note sect. At the mountain gate there stood a woman. There was also a young man beside her who was drinking. Jiang Hao was impressed. The auras of these two individuals seemed endless. It was like a vast ocean. Their spiritual energy surged like tumultuous waves. "May I ask if you two have an invitation?" asked the woman. Jiang Hao took out the jade pendant given to him by the man yesterday. It had the words Bright Moon written on it, with sun and moon motifs surrounding it. When the woman saw the jade pendant, she was somewhat surprised. She then gestured for the young man sitting on the ground to take a look. With a glance, the young man instantly sobered up. He then stood up and returned the jade pendant with both hands. I apologize for not recognizing two esteemed seniors. Please forgive my rudeness. Please forgive us for any inconvenience, said the woman in respect. Jiang Hao took back the jade pendant. He felt a little embarrassed. The strength of these two individuals far exceeded his. The reason he possessed this jade pendant was because of Hong Yuye, but he couldn't reveal that. After exchanging some polite words, he walked inside with Hong Yuye. Watching the two depart, the woman let out a sigh of relief. Has the Grand Master come out of seclusion? She asked. How should I know? Anyone who can obtain the ancestral jade pendant is not ordinary. But they seem to be from different stages of the Foundation establishment realm. I thought they were from some small sect and were here to join the event, said the young man. Being gatekeepers is not an easy task. The woman Ning sighed. If it weren't for you, we wouldn't have been sentenced to 100 years of gatekeeping, said the drunk man Ing Shuetian. What's there to be scared of? Many seniors are still waiting in line behind us to take their turn as gatekeepers. It's said that they're scheduled for duty 1,000 years from now. We got ahead of them so we can be a bit proud. Ning said. Ing Shuetian was speechless. When he thought about it, it made sense. Most juniors who weren't strong enough didn't get a chance at all. They didn't have the same level of freedom as Ning Yin and Ing Shuetian, who could engage in conversation while on gatekeeping duty. Chapter 427, I Can't Stop Laughing. Entering the Bright Moon sect, Jiang Hao felt somewhat strange. Were the people of the Bright Moon sect really this powerful? Even the gatekeeper was so strong that he felt like even the leaders of ordinary sects might not be able to match them. If the Bright Moon sect was like this throughout, then the Clear Sky School must be similar. It was no wonder Shang An's master wasn't even allowed through the gates. By now it was already getting brighter outside. Jiang Hao looked around the Bright Moon sect. It was surrounded by a road of magical patterns, and immortal cranes circled in the sky. The spiritual energy here far surpassed that of the Heavenly Note sect. Before, he thought that the Heavenly Note sect was pretty good, but compared to this place it seemed somewhat poor. The foundation of the Bright Moon sect was simply incomparable to sects like the Heavenly Note sect. In their sect, disciples in the Soul Ascension realm were rare. But here, even return to Void Realm cultivators were quite common. This place is indeed extraordinary. Hong Yuye glanced at Jiang Hao. Where did you get that jade pendant? It was given to me by a senior. The one who got drunk on the Star River? He gave it to me, Jiang Hao said. Why don't you stay here then? Hong Yuye asked. Jiang Hao shook his head. The real reason he was being valued wasn't because of the poem he recited. It was because Hong Yuye was by his side. To make them look at him with higher regard, she must be on equal footing with them. If he wanted to stay in the Bright Moon sect with the jade pendant, Hong Yuye would have to stay too. If that happened, it didn't make much difference where they went. Furthermore, offending the Heavenly Note sect would lead to trouble. Even if they crossed the boundaries of the East and West, they would come after them. It wasn't worth it. After walking for some time, they heard some disciples reading aloud. Jiang Hao looked over and saw that there were scholars far away engaged in morning reading. They exuded a strong aura of righteousness. I can't stand these scholars. They disturb our rest every day. Can't they do their morning reading somewhere further away? Said a woman. Jiang Hao was curious and approached them. Hong Yuye followed. She seemed curious about the scholars too. But the closer they got, the more they felt unwelcome. Here they come again. Louder every day, as if they're afraid the others won't know they're reading in the morning. A young man sighed. Every day at this time I have to get up and listen to them reading. It was interesting at first, but now it's just noisy. I've already reported it to the Bright Moon sect's people, but it seems they haven't responded, said a woman helplessly. Why not use some soundproof formations? Jiang Hao asked. No way, their righteous aura is too strong. Ordinary formations are useless. Besides, it doesn't really have that much impact. No one wants to put in the effort to set up such a formation, said a young man. That's true. Jiang Hao nodded. There really wasn't much that could be done. Then why not find another place? He asked. Who should find another place? Them or us? Asked a woman at the primordial spirit realm. If they won't move, why should we? They can read and we can complain. Let's see who can stand it longer, said someone furiously. Is that so? It seems you have quite a grudge against the scholars of the Astronomical Academy. The aura of righteousness can cleanse the evil energy of the world. If you listen attentively, there are benefits to it, said a middle-aged man as he walked over to them. He was a senior at the Astronomical Academy and had come over to see if he could persuade these people to let the scholar be. That's true, but after the first cleansing, what's the point of further cleansing? Isn't that just asking for trouble? Asked someone. Just listen attentively and understand the wisdom of the sages. Gain insight into the hearts of the sages, said the middle-aged man. These are scholars from the Academy of Celestial Arts, not just the Astronomical Academy. The world has more than just one astronomical academy. Everyone has their own path and ideals. If the Astronomical Academy is considered correct just because it's powerful, then where does the Clear Sky School stand? A man asked. Chang Zizai froze. He then smiled. Jiang Hao was just listening on the sidelines and didn't participate in the debate. There was really no right or wrong in such matters. After all, no one could prove it. Some people read in the morning while others just made noise. It was common behavior. After all, in the world of the four great sects, how could just one sect be dominant? Do you also find the morning reading too noisy? Chang Zizai asked Jiang Hao. Not really. Jiang Hao shook his head and looked at the scholars from the Astronomical Academy. The sound of disciples reading reminded him of something. Upon hearing this, Chang Zizai was delighted that someone had not come to speak ill of them. However, the people beside him were not convinced. What? Because you're also from the Astronomical Academy? Are you also one of them? Jiang Hao pointed to the brightening sky. 3 watches see the lamp's light glow. 5 times the roosters crow. This is when a true man studies. Chang Zizai suddenly froze. He repeated Jiang Hao's words. 3 watches see the lamp's light glow. 5 times the roosters crow. This is when a true man studies. Wonderful. He wanted to ask Jiang Hao about the continuation of this poem. But when he looked up, he was gone. Where is he? Where did he go? In his shock, he had lost the opportunity to befriend the person. Did you see where that person went? Chang Zizai asked the people around him. They also seemed surprised by the poem. None of them had seen where Jiang Hao had gone. Chang Zizai left in frustration. He needed to go and find the person. Meanwhile, Wan Xiu and his companion happened to arrive there while wandering around. They had also heard that someone was cursing the scholars from the Astronomical Academy, so they came to join in on the commotion. I'll curse them later and you throw a few spirit stones to cheer for me. Others will surely follow suit and pay you in spirit stones. Then I'll buy you a drink, Wan Xiu said. You have no shame. His companion gave him a disdainful look. Unless you're buying flower wine tonight. Of course. Wan Xiu laughed. The two heard the sound of reading and quickly approached the crowd and found that these people didn't seem to be complaining anymore. Something was not right. Wan Xiu approached someone and asked, Aren't you angry? No. I'm not angry anymore, the person said. Why? 3 watches see the lamp's light glow. 5 times the roosters crow. This is when a true man studies. After saying that, he took out a book. Wan Xiu was astonished. Did you write that poem? No, it's not mine. It's from someone. I don't know where they went, said the young man. Wan Xiu asked about the person who had recited the poem. The answer he got was that the person was nothing special. It was just an ordinary person along with a woman. He was at the late stage and the woman was at the peak of the foundation establishment realm. Wan Xiu was stunned. Meanwhile, his companion burst into laughter. You've been fooled again. He said he didn't remember and now he suddenly comes up with another line. He's just messing with you. Ah, I can't stop laughing. His companion was laughing so hard that he was holding his stomach. Wan Xiu looked around. He saw a large lake and kicked his companion into it. With a loud splash, the drunk man fell in and called for help. Chapter 428, A Toad Chasing After a Swan. In the Bright Moon sect, the narrow mountain path was imbued with magical patterns along the stairs. It seemed to transform into something extraordinary by the influence of immortal energy. Every step gave off a sense of stability and peace. It made the mind and the heart calm. The surrounding flower bushes were extraordinary as well. Their auras harmonized and the spiritual energy flowed. Frequently, cranes flew by in the sky. Jiang Hao and Hong Yuye were side by side as they walked up the stairs. Was that poem you just recited taught to you by your father? Hong Yuye asked. Yes, I heard it from my father when I was a child. Jiang Hao nodded. It was indeed true, but it was not his father. Is it good? Hong Yuye asked. Not necessarily. It might evoke some feelings in scholars, but other cultivators might see it as pretentious or meaningless, Jiang Hao said. And you don't mind it? She asked. Jiang Hao nodded. 1,000 people would come and go. Jiang Hao only needed to stay true to himself. As time passed, his cultivation would continue to grow, and his lifespan would increase. He would encounter many people along the way. Some would just pass by while others would barely cross paths with him. These people often held grudges or spoke ill of him because of a single word he said. Should he really care about them? They were just passing travelers and were fleeting like clouds in the sky. Such people would be plentiful in the world. Why should he bother with them? The sound of footsteps resounded, and Hong Yuye continued toward the mountain peak. On the way she looked at him and smiled. What if someone still wants you to compose poetry for them? I really don't know how to. Jiang Hao smiled wryly. Hong Yuye fell silent and continued to climb the stone steps. Jiang Hao followed her. After a while they reached the top of the mountain, which seemed to be a place for practicing techniques. Many people were engaged in discussions. This kind of cultivation environment was beneficial to many. Jiang Hao's gaze stopped at a corner. Chu Chuan was also practicing there. Although he had already reached the foundation establishment realm, he had not stopped cultivating. It seemed he was eager to become stronger. At this moment a few people approached Chu Chuan. Jiang Hao was curious. He watched to see what would happen. Chu Chuan also noticed that some people were approaching him. 3 men and 2 women. He stopped cultivating and looked at the 5 people. Are you Chu Chuan? The leader of the group asked with contempt. Who are you? Chu Chuan asked politely. I heard you're from the same hometown as Chu Jie. Yu Sha sneered. With your shabby appearance, you're not here to swindle Chu Jie's spirit stones, are you? She's still young and inexperienced. What vile things are you planning? Do you think we don't know what people like you might be up to? Chu Chuan frowned. What could I possibly be planning? He asked coldly. Don't you know yourself? Yu Sha stepped closer to Chu Chuan, and his aura spread out. In an instant, a powerful aura pressed down on Chu Chuan. Do you really think it's so remarkable to reach the foundation establishment realm at a young age? Yu Sha sneered. It looks like you're solely focused on improving your cultivation while being utterly clueless about everything else. Do you honestly think we would believe you when you say you came all this way just to meet the person from the same hometown? You're probably a toad chasing after the swan. Chu Chuan was infuriated as he stared at the person in front of him. He seemed ready to fight. But at this moment, Yu Sha's hand rested on Chu Chuan's shoulder, and his strength was suppressed. Am I right? Are you angry because you're embarrassed you got caught? Sha asked. Look into the mirror once in a while. Don't you know who junior sister Chu Jie is? She is the most precious treasure of the Bright Moon sect. One of the most powerful sects in the world. And what are you worth? Chu Chuan retorted. You country bumpkin, don't provoke me. During the Tao conference, I'll request a suppression of cultivation to fight you. Then you'll understand what despair is and you'll realize you're nothing, Yu Sha said. Yu Sha withdrew his aura and turned to leave. At this point, a young woman looked at Chu Chuan. How many spirit stones does your sect provide per month? She asked kindly. Chu Chuan was puzzled by her question. But he couldn't bring himself to answer and remained silent. The young girl sighed in helplessness and turned to leave. The 5 people from the Bright Moon sect left, and the people around them began to gossip and point fingers. It seemed like they were mocking Chu Chuan. They enjoyed the drama. In the end, Chu Chuan returned to his original spot and resumed his cultivation. His eyes were filled with anger, and his fist techniques were even fiercer than before. The humiliation and pressure did not make him buckle. Instead, it ignited his inner desire to become even stronger. Jiang Hao watched him and breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, there hadn't been a fight. If they had clashed, Chu Chuan would have had to endure even greater humiliation. In the eyes of others, it would be like treating him as an outcast. Such an experience might make him grow stronger faster, but his peace of mind would be eroded. In the end, he wouldn't be himself anymore. He's not bad, Hong Yuye said. Yes, but I'm afraid he might not be able to control himself. He might end up causing trouble, said Jiang Hao. The Bright Moon sect was a suitable place for Chu Chuan. Due to Chu Jie's presence, there would inevitably be people targeting him, but those people wouldn't dare to take real action. They wouldn't clash with him because of Chu Jie, and also because this was an immortal sect. An immortal sect had strict laws against harassment and indiscriminate killing of disciples. The person who had just confronted Chu Chuan had no intention of attacking him at all, and he needed a valid reason to do so. The Dao conference would be such an opportunity. What did you teach him? Hong Yuye asked. I told him to conceal his abilities and only act at the right moment, Jiang Hao said. Like how you faced me? Hong Yuye asked with a half-smile. Jiang Hao's heart skipped a beat. One wouldn't dare. Hong Yuye chuckled but didn't press him further. She walked towards an empty area. The young girl who had left with Yu Sha and the others didn't follow them. Instead, she went her own way and arrived at a loft. The moon was shining brightly here, and the spiritual energy was several times denser than outside. Magical formations surrounded the area. There were stars everywhere. It was like something out of a fairy tale. This was Chu Jie's residence. Junior sister Chu Jie, the young woman Tao Yun called out. The door opened and a young girl in a white gown appeared. Starlight surrounded her as she walked out. Senior sister Tao Yun, you're looking for me? Chu Jie smiled. Yes. Tao Yun nodded. At this moment she noticed the hairpin on Chu Jie's head. Is that a gift from the person who's from the same hometown as you? Tao Yun asked. Yes. Chu Jie nodded. I was worried that he might not have enough spirit stones, so I didn't suggest buying a magical treasure. This is very ordinary and not so expensive. Not expensive? Tao Yun had wanted to talk with her about something else, but she couldn't bring herself to say it. In truth, 600 spirit stones were indeed not expensive here. After hesitating for a moment, she finally asked, Chu Jie, do you think 600 might actually be a lot of spirit stones for your fellow townsmen? It can't be, Chu Jie thought about it for a moment. My seniors spend several thousand or even more spirit stones when they buy something. 500 or 600 spirit stones wouldn't be enough for them to purchase anything. Chapter 429, Stripping Away of Luck. Tao Yun fell silent. At this point she had already entered Chu Jie's courtyard. She sat down and thought about how to make her understand. Is your relationship with your fellow townsmen good? It was good when we were kids, but when we met today it seemed like there was a kind of distance between us, said Chu Jie truthfully. Then, when he gave you the gift, was he trying to burden you? Tao Yun asked. Of course not, said Chu Jie immediately. Then, let me explain it to you, junior sister Chu, Tao Yun said. Do you know which sect he belongs to? I heard it's a demonic sect, Chu Jie said. Yes, the Heavenly Note sect. It's an obscure sect in the southern region. It is a demonic sect, said Tao Yun. Their strength is decent, but their sect has only been established for a few decades since they expanded. In contrast, our Bright Moon sect is incomparable. Then, in such a sect, how many spirit stones would an outer sect disciple typically earn? Tao Yun said. The Heavenly Note sect is different from us. The disciples only become inner sect disciples after reaching the Foundation Establishment realm. Your fellow townsmen reached the Foundation Establishment realm only recently. Maybe around a year or two ago. How many spirit stones does an outer sect disciple earn? Chu Jie asked with concern. The answer far exceeded her expectations. Tao Yun stretched out one slender finger. 1. Outer sect disciples there typically start their journey with 1 spirit stone. It increases to 20 when they reach the early stage of the Foundation Establishment realm. Even with 20 spirit stones a month, saving 100 or 600 spirit stones might take several years if he can be very frugal with his spending. It goes without saying that cultivators constantly need magic treasures, pills and talismans to improve their cultivation, she said. How many years do you think it took him to save 600 spirit stones, considering the fact that he only recently achieved the Foundation Establishment realm? How could he have managed to save so many spirit stones? Chu Jie was left stunned. She found it unbelievable. I didn't know. She stood up. She wanted to find Chu Chuan but quickly sat back down. I can't leave. My master said I could only see him once. I have to wait until I've successfully achieved the Heavenly Dao Foundation establishment. She then looked at Tao Yun. Senior sister Tao, can you talk to him for me, please? I really don't know what to do. Jiang Hao walked around the Bright Moon sect. He wanted to find where disciples from the Clear Sky School were located. He wanted to see how strong the Clear Sky School was. He was also curious whether Louis Xingqian would be recognized by members of the Clear Sky School. If they did recognize him, what would happen? It had been almost 2 years, and he had no idea about the condition of the remnant souls in his body. Without seeing Louis Xingchen, he couldn't assess the situation. He spent the entire day wandering aimlessly and following Hong Yuye around. It wasn't until evening that Hong Yuye left the Bright Moon sect, and they returned to their inn. "Don't disturb me for the next few days," she said before heading back to her room. Jiang Hao didn't mind. Tomorrow he could continue with selling his wares. He had extra time to craft talismans and cultivate. By now he had reached the middle stage of the Soul Ascension realm. He could now learn the fourth form of the Heavenly Blade. He could also try practicing the techniques from the Hongmeng Heart Sutra too. Over the next few days, Jiang Hao rarely ventured outside. Aside from clearing away any excess items on his person, he spent his time studying the fourth form of the Heavenly Blade and brushing up on the 3 other forms he had learned before. He also took out the Nameless Manual and studied it again. He gained new insights into the light and dust technique. The Bright Moon sect was a vast place, and he would inevitably encounter people he didn't want to meet again, like Wan Xiu and his companion. On the 3rd day of selling his wares at the stall, they found him and asked if he remembered any other poems. Jiang Hao could only shake his head in defeat. Then they asked about his father, which made Jiang Hao feel uncomfortable. These senior cultivators had no sense of restraint. Jiang Hao had always felt like he was being watched when he went outside. He knew it was them. To avoid them, he chose not to go outside at all. Fortunately, he had sold all of his items, so he only had to concentrate on his cultivation. It had been half a month, and he was primarily focusing on comprehending his previous techniques, particularly the Nameless Manual. He felt that he had gained a deeper understanding to control his powers. From rough understanding to minute details, he studied everything. The more he studied, the more he felt that he had greater control over the power within his body. However, compared to Su Bai, he was still nowhere close to reaching his level. But there was no need to rush. He took it step by step. In this half a month, Hong Yuye still hadn't come out of her room, and Jiang Hao wasn't sure what she was up to. On the other hand, he had successfully understood the fourth form of the Heavenly Blade. This move was called No Regrets. It was about going forward relentlessly and leaving no room for retreat or fear. The more fearless the wielder, the greater the power unleashed by this strike. However, using this move might result in temporary mental damage that might leave the wielder unable to use the blade anymore. If used without hesitation, this strike could be incredibly powerful, but it bordered on self-sacrifice. Whether it drained the user's strength depended on the power released by the strike. If it far exceeded the user's current strength, they might become powerless, but if it was used in moderation, it wouldn't affect the user much. This move mainly depends on one's state of mind. This needs the mindset of putting your life on the line to achieve the greatest power, Jiang Hao read aloud. However, he felt that this move wasn't suitable for him. He never allowed himself to reach such a desperate situation. Even in danger, he always tried to conserve his strength and look for opportunities rather than confront the situation head-on. If there truly were no alternatives, he would use it, but he would try to avoid it as much as possible. It was unlikely that he would be able to use this move effectively in ordinary situations. Maybe I can modify it and let Chu Chuan take a look. It might be more suitable for him. Chu Chuan was someone who grew stronger with each battle, and his path was anything but smooth. His unrelenting state of mind fit the technique. However, Jiang Hao was only just learning these forms of the Heavenly Blade. Modifying it would be too challenging for him. After putting away the book, Jiang Hao headed downstairs to have a meal. At the table there were people discussing something. "Have you heard this rumor?" a middle-aged man whispered. Jiang Hao sipped his tea and listened to what the rumor was about. "What rumor?" a young man at the table asked. "I heard that the reason why Bright Moon Sect invited so many cultivators this time is for one purpose only," the middle-aged man said cautiously. He looked around before speaking again. "It said that they invited so many to strip away the luck of those participating in the Tao conference so that a genius disciple can achieve Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment." "Stripping away luck? Is that true?" asked a skeptical girl at the table. "Where there's smoke, there's fire. Moreover, the Bright Moon Sect hasn't responded to this rumor at all. Even if it's not true, it might still harm the cultivator's luck," the middle-aged man said. "The rumor must be false. Why would the Bright Moon Sect do something like that? The people from the Clear Sky School, the Mountain Sea Sword Sect, and the Astronomical Academy are all here," said a young man in disbelief. But is it possible that they want to join forces to harvest our luck? The middle-aged man asked. I don't believe that, the young man said. Jiang Hao felt worried when he heard this. The rumors had started to spread. It had already begun. It might spread so rapidly that it might end up affecting the Tao conference. If it reached that point, Shang'an would come over. He wondered how the Bright Moon sect would deal with this in the future. Chapter 430, I love making new friends. Jiang Hao went out for a stroll and found that the rumors were spreading. Some even started to think seriously about it. Once rumors spread, they couldn't be stopped. No matter how much the truth is explained, those who doubt will continue to doubt it. You're truly ignorant. Even though you can't get close to the main gate of the Bright Moon sect, you're worried about what will happen after you enter it. If you're afraid, you can just turn around and leave. Go far away from Star Moon City. But how do you know if it's true or not? Ridiculous. It's obvious that someone can't stand the success of the Bright Moon sect and has spread these baseless rumors. Why would someone be risking their lives to spread the information? Jiang Hao wandered around various places and found many people debating whether the rumors were true. Fellow disciple Jiang, we meet again, said a surprised voice from behind. Jiang Hao felt helpless as he turned to look. It was Wan Xiu and Xiqing once again. They seemed to be watching him. Basic courtesy was still important, no matter what he felt. Seniors, what a coincidence. Xiqing laughed. How about a drink? Jiang Hao had no choice but to agree. They went to the same loft as before. The massive river was clear and still during the day. He saw an occasional boat pass by. Even during the day there were people around. The place still looked beautiful. Where do you study, my friend? Wan Xiu asked curiously. Just a small place, Jiang Hao said. Your father must be highly educated, right? Wan Xiu asked again. No, he was just an ordinary scholar. Compared to you two, he is nothing, Jiang Hao said truthfully. These two seemed to like poetry and calligraphy, but it was useless to them. According to them, it was just a way to be cultured. Wan Xiu didn't ask any further questions and he looked at the people on the opposite shore. I heard a lot of rumors lately. People say that the Bright Moon sect wants to steal people's luck. I heard about it too, Jiang Hao said. What do you think, my friend? Wan Xiu asked. Jiang Hao looked at them and shook his head. I'm not very knowledgeable on such matters. Do you feel like it's true or false? Xiqing asked. Jiang Hao always felt that these two were trying to persuade him to join them. Because of Hong Yuye, they thought he was someone important. If he didn't say anything, they wouldn't let him be. Seniors, there's no need to test me. I'm just here out of curiosity and to explore. Of course, I'm also curious about Foundation establishment. Wan Xiu chuckled awkwardly. Do you think it's possible, my friend? Jiang Hao remained silent for a moment. It's possible. The two of them paused, then smiled knowingly. By the way, that young lady, is she your partner? Xiqing asked. He was a little drunk. Jiang Hao almost spat out the wine. She's my senior sister, Jiang Hao said. Wan Xiu and Xiqing looked at each other and nodded with a smile. I see. Jiang Hao felt like they might have misunderstood something. But it didn't matter as long as Hong Yuye didn't find out. In a little over 10 days the Tao conference would begin. It should be quite lively by then, and he could also see the power of various sections. Most importantly, he might encounter the end of all things. Maybe he could capture someone alive from there and interrogate them. He didn't expect to find the person behind the stone tablet, obviously. However, it would be great if he could find a way to contact them. He also needed to be cautious of the fallen immortal clan. They had special methods to pry into others' secrets. He wanted to avoid them if possible. If he did encounter them, he would try not to attract their attention. Friend, do you feel like reciting a poem? Asked Wan Xiu. Jiang Hao was speechless. He was curious if all high-level cultivators were like this. Back at the inn, he waited for time to pass. By now he had sold everything he could. He now had 38,650 spirit stones. He had also bought a lot of materials for making talismans. Even though the things he sold were cheap, the materials he bought were cheaper. It seemed that there was fierce competition here and the cost was low. Another 10 days passed. Jiang Hao realized that there were only 3 days left until the Tao conference. Hong Yuye still hadn't come out of her room. It had been quite a while. It might be dangerous for him to go to the conference alone. The Bright Moon sect was an immortal sect, and the other sects that were attending weren't weak. He was at the middle stage of the soul ascension realm. He was considered only decent, but he would be a match for any of the seniors if it came to a fight. With Hong Yuye by his side, many things would be easier. It was supposed to be 2 days, but she's been locked in for over 20 days. Jiang Hao was becoming concerned. He used his spiritual sense to check. There was an aura behind the door. He hesitated. He didn't know whether to go in. I'll wait for 2 more days. Jiang Hao could only sit and wait in the inn. He listened to the rumors to see if there were any new developments. In my opinion, we have the right to know. But the Bright Moon sect hasn't said a word. It makes us lose faith in them. The Bright Moon sect is an immortal sect and we should trust them. These are just rumors. Are we choosing to believe in the rumors more than the Bright Moon sect? But the Bright Moon sect hasn't said a word and I'm worried. They should at least explain or clarify things. What do you think, fellow disciples? It makes sense. I've been waiting for the Bright Moon sect to clarify things, but they have been very quiet. Jiang Hao turned to look at the young man who was speaking. He initially expressed disbelief in the rumors, but later expressed his concern that the Bright Moon sect hadn't clarified anything. It certainly made the Bright Moon sect look suspicious. He appears to be in the early stage of the Golden Core realm. But his cultivation is somewhat inscrutable to me. At this point, the other person seemed infuriated. I won't say anything more. I'm going to go and ask about this whole thing. Jiang Hao praised him. Outside Star Moon City, some people had gathered in a cave. The rumors have spread far and wide. Even the Bright Moon sect can't withstand such rumors. With people's doubts in their faith, succeeding in the Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment will be extremely difficult. Someone let out a laugh. That's not enough. When the disciple who is about to start the foundation establishment appears at the Tao conference, will make the people voice their doubts. By then, will the Bright Moon sect still be able to complete the Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment? That's still not enough. The Earth Extreme Heart Devouring Pearl has already been sent. When the Earth Extreme Heart Devouring Pearl disrupts the Great Luck, a little kid about to start the foundation establishment won't be able to bear it. The Saint Bandits are also keeping an eye on that little kid. Even if the Bright Moon sect manages to protect the child, they won't be able to succeed with the Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment. Succeeding in the Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment was extremely difficult as it was. Any disturbance could easily lead to failure. By the way, where's Lu Quan? Why hasn't he come yet? He went to the city to spread rumors. Why would he do that? Forget it. Let's go and make sure he doesn't get us into any trouble. A few people agreed. Just as they were about to leave, a man with a bottle of wine in hand walked into the cave with a smile. Done so soon? Aren't you going to talk about it more? After all, we only heard a little. The others were shocked. Run. However, just as they tried to flee, the whole cave collapsed, and a figure appeared in the sky in a radiant light. Why run? We're all friends here. Sit down and talk. I love making new friends. Chapter 431, Learning the One Heart Palm. The next day, Jiang Hao was still sitting in the inn and listening to the conversations of the people around him. Yesterday he had appraised someone. He found out that the person was from the fallen immortal clan and was going to meet up with his companions. He had used the contact information left by Wan Xiao and Si Cheng and told them everything. He didn't know what had happened after that. If these two were taking action, then it seemed plausible that no one would be their match. So far, he hadn't felt that anyone could compare to them. The Tao conference was starting the day after tomorrow. Yet, Hong Yuye still hadn't come out of her room. After careful thought, he decided to go to her room. He didn't find any barriers. The only protective barriers were the ones they had set up when they first rented the room. Jiang Hao approached her room. He thought of knocking but decided against it. He chose to go in silently. This way he wouldn't disturb her. If everything was fine with her, he could leave quietly. There was no sound from Hong Yuye at all. He wanted to check in on her. When he was about to go in, the door suddenly opened from inside. His hand hovered in the air close to the person who had opened the door. If he had gone even an inch forward, his hand would have touched her. Hong Yuye stared at him and smiled. In an instant, a chill spread throughout the entire inn. Jiang Hao quickly withdrew his hand and lowered his head. "Senior, I didn't mean to." Bang. A vast aura surged and sent Jiang Hao flying. The people in the inn only felt a chill but didn't notice anything unusual. The sudden coldness came and went very quickly, so no one paid much attention. Jiang Hao held his face and got up from the floor. He had just hit his face against the wall. Hong Yuye had used her power to push him from outside the room, and he had crashed into the wall. It was an accident. He hadn't expected Hong Yuye to open the door so suddenly. He was curious. He wondered what would have happened if he had entered the room. Would he be dead by now? It was better not to be curious about such things. He could end up dead. When he regained his composure, Hong Yuye was already sitting at the table. Jiang Hao didn't dare hesitate and went over to make tea. "What were you trying to do just now?" Hong Yuye asked as she raised her teacup. "I was just about to knock on the door to check in on you, senior. The Tao conference is approaching." "You use your palm to knock on the door?" Hong Yuye sipped her tea. "I apologize, senior." Jiang Hao bowed respectfully. Hong Yuye looked at the person in front of her. "How long until the Tao conference?" "It's the day after tomorrow," Jiang Hao said. It was time. Otherwise he would never dare to push on her door. "The day after tomorrow?" Hong Yuye sipped her tea. "Are you prepared?" "Yes." Jiang Hao nodded. He had indeed made all the other preparations, but the most important one was still Hong Yuye. She was unpredictable and beyond anything he had ever encountered. For example, he knew his meeting with Wan Xiao and Si Cheng was because of her. If it were just him, they wouldn't be so courteous to him. Although Hong Yuye hadn't done much, her mere presence was impactful. Hong Yuye didn't seem to care about the rumors and the fallen immortal clan. It seemed that these matters were nothing to her. She was probably more interested in the Great Thousand God sect, the end of all things, and the stone tablet. The stone tablet was probably her greatest interest. Before, she used to collect the stone tablets, but not anymore. Collecting more of them would affect the gathering. It would be even harder to find the person behind the stone tablet. It's quite difficult to succeed in the Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment. "No one will know how it will go until the very end," said Hong Yuye as she put down her teacup. "But for the good of the whole world, it is important for the Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment to succeed." Jiang Hao nodded. The Earth Extreme Heart Devouring Pearl had appeared, and the Earth Extreme Silence Pearl was also being sought after. These items were all apocalyptic. Once they appeared, ordinary people couldn't withstand the destruction. Only those with great luck could suppress these things. For many, there was a benefit to someone achieving the Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment. Even demonic sects acknowledged it. After finishing the tea, Hong Yuye walked behind the folding screen. "Prepare the water." Jiang Hao knew that Hong Yuye wanted to bathe. After testing the water temperature, Jiang Hao sat down with his back to the folding screen. He could hear the sound of clothes being taken off and the sound of water as someone entered the tub. Images flashed through his mind. At this moment, a book suddenly fell in front of him. "I won't make you help me for nothing," said Hong Yuye from behind. Jiang Hao picked up the book and looked at it. There were 3 words on it: one heart palm. Even if he learned this technique, it wouldn't be of use. He examined the book curiously. The one heart palm was created by a couple. Their love was supposedly forbidden. On the night they were separated, they created this palm technique. They planned to elope afterward. The woman was confined, and the man traversed endless distances to reach her. As long as this palm technique succeeded, the woman would be by his side in an instant. Jiang Hao read further. He found that the subsequent pages contained the cultivation method for the palm technique. What happened next? Jiang Hao was curious. Did they elope in the end? Why was their love forbidden? The cultivation world was vast and boundless, and what was considered forbidden in one place might not be so in another. What could be so forbidden that the entire world would despise it? He couldn't understand. "Are you curious to know if they succeeded?" Hong Yuye suddenly asked. "Yes. From this book, it seems the palm technique was successfully created. So, they should have succeeded in eloping together, right?" "They failed," Hong Yuye said. "Why?" Jiang Hao was puzzled. "Because that man was involved with other women, the one heart palm failed," Hong Yuye said. "So, if one person is involved with many others, both will fail?" Jiang Hao asked. "Yes." Hong Yuye nodded. "Is it possible that the woman might have been the problem?" Jiang Hao asked. Hong Yuye remained silent. Jiang Hao dared not say more. He continued reading and found out that the technique was supposed to be cast on the chest. He wondered if it could be cast on the back instead of the chest. If the back was an option, he had a chance to use it. But casting it on the chest. Jiang Hao shook his head. That was impossible. Hong Yuya might go berserk and just kill him at that point. After that, he began to comprehend the technique. It wasn't until late at night that he had an epiphany. There was no sound behind him. Senior? He called twice, but Hong Yuya didn't respond. He turned around and saw that Hong Yuya was lying in the wooden tub. He approached the folding screen and found that Hong Yuya had fallen asleep. He shook his head and sat back down to read more about the one-heart palm. On the day of the Tao conference, Jiang Hao emerged from Hong Yuya's room. He had been reading about the one-heart palm all along. It wasn't a difficult technique, but it was somewhat strange. It seemed to be related to one's state of mind as well. If one had a strong aversion towards someone, the technique couldn't be used at all. This surprised Jiang Hao. Chapter 432, The Gap Between Heaven and Earth. On the way to the Bright Moon sect, Jiang Hao glanced at Hong Yuya. After learning that she didn't reject him too much, he felt a bit strange. He was surprised. After careful consideration, he realized that not being rejected didn't mean much. He didn't reject people who spread rumors about him, but that didn't mean he thought highly of them either. Could go either way. Perhaps the mindset of the strong was similar to that. Jiang Hao couldn't help but think positively about it. He didn't dare to show it at all. The consequences of being too clever were something he couldn't afford. He couldn't even imagine the state of mind of someone like Hong Yuya. If he jumped to conclusions based on some small guesses, what awaited him would be an endless abyss. The only safe approach was to get stronger. He had learned almost everything about one-heart palm. He only lacked practice. The only person he could practice it with was the woman beside him. Do you want to try the one-heart palm? Hong Yuya suddenly turned to him and asked teasingly. Jiang Hao's heart skipped a bit. Then he shook his head. I was just thinking about the Tao conference and wondering what would happen there. Hong Yuya chuckled but didn't say anything. This time they were heading directly to the Bright Moon sect and not to the Vin peaks. It was time for the development of the Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment, so they weren't in a hurry. As they approached the Bright Moon sect, more and more people appeared around them. Some were not strong enough to live in the Bright Moon sect, so they were heading there slowly. Some flew on their swords while others walked. There are so many people and their strength is formidable, Jiang Hao said as he watched the crowd. The Tao conference of the Bright Moon sect attracted only the strongest individuals. Even if they were not the absolute strongest, they were among the top elite. They either had enough opportunities or astonishing talent. For example, there were two individuals from the Cliff of Broken Hearts, Mu Qi and Han Ming. He knew them and recognized them at the Bright Moon sect. There was also Lu Xingchen, who was even more extraordinary. There were 3 remnant souls inside him, a true dragon, a sorcerer, and a blood demon. Each remnant soul had an extraordinary background, but they were all held captive. It was clear how strong Lu Xingchen was. Jiang Hao believed that he couldn't do something like that. He couldn't hold them captive for so long, let alone devour them. He was curious about how these 3 remnant souls would resist. If they resisted, they might win, but if they didn't, Lu Xingchen would get bored and devour them. Is there anyone among these people who belongs to the end of all things? Hong Yuya asked. It's hard to say. The end of all things mostly looks at experience and temperament. People filled with hatred, anger, and darkness are the most likely to join them, Jiang Hao said. And such people were impossible to spot, which was the tricky part. The people of the end of all things were the hardest to find. Any stranger could be one of them. Although there was a way to appraise them, it would take too long because there were too many people. They could only rely on their own observations. As long as Chu Jie doesn't appear, those people wouldn't rush to come out. On their way to the central square, Jiang Hao saw a group of people. Leading them was his master, Ku Wu Chang, and behind him were many others. Among them he saw Xiaoli holding the spirit beast. She was excited. Beast, will there be food later? Xiaoli asked. After it's over we can have a meal. Remember to mention my name then and you'll get more food, the beast said solemnly. Can we keep eating like that? Yes, you have to keep mentioning my name. Really? Do you still not know who I am? I know you treat people with integrity. Chu Chuan nodded. He believed that the beast was absolutely right. Jiang Hao walked past them without attracting anyone's attention. It was only when their group had gone far away that Hong Yuya spoke up. Shaoli regards you as an older brother, which doesn't seem like you at all. What do you mean, senior? Jiang Hao asked curiously. Hong Yuye chuckled. She doesn't lie like you. Jiang Hao couldn't respond. It seemed that the spirit beast wasn't a bad influence on Shaoli. He wasn't unsure what the beast had been teaching her. The spirit beast was adept at lying more than most, after all. Jiang Hao glanced at Chu Chuan and thought about how those who wanted to target him would do so during the Dao conference. It was unclear whether he could handle it. The gap between him and Chu Jie would become apparent after the Dao conference. An ordinary sect disciple and the most outstanding foundation establishment realm cultivator. He could even influence the future course of the world. How would Chu Chuan face such a person? The gap between them couldn't be crossed with just effort. The gap was there. It would become more and more evident and wider as time passed. It wasn't a matter of one person falling behind. It was a matter of the other person soaring to great heights. Childhood friendships would gradually fade away in the face of such a gap. That was inevitable. Jiang Hao sighed and looked at the others. Where is Lu Xingchen? Jiang Hao was quite surprised. Soon Jiang Hao arrived at the central square and showed his jade pendant. He was invited to a high seat on the side. He looked around after taking his seat. There were many arenas in the center and there were many marked areas around them. Each belonged to a different sections. Jiang Hao found the Heavenly Note sect. Compared to other sects, the Heavenly Note sect was indeed inferior in terms of heritage and strength. The fact that the Bright Moon sect had invited them was already quite impressive. Soon Jiang Hao and the others sat down. Others began to take their seats as well. They gathered in groups of 2 or 3. They all seemed familiar with each other. Each of them had extraordinary cultivation. Soon they saw Jiang Hao and Hong Yuye and they seemed surprised. The two were seated in the most central position. Not everyone was invited to be seated there. The center seats were reserved for the most important people. May I ask who you are? Chang Zizai came over to greet them. Jiang Hao stood up to return the greeting. It's you? Chang Zizai expressed surprise and delight. I've been looking for you everywhere. I didn't expect to find you here. Jiang Hao felt a little embarrassed. He hadn't expected that a few words he had exchanged would make these senior cultivators remember him. The 2 other seniors had gone all out in watching and stalking him everywhere. Fortunately, they didn't intend to do anything. They were only here for the Heavenly Dao Foundation establishment. Jiang Hao didn't recognize this particular cultivator. Can I sit here? Chang Zizai pointed to the seat next to Jiang Hao. Of course, senior, Jiang Hao said politely. Calling me senior feels a bit formal. If you can sit here, you're not an ordinary cultivator. By the way, is there more to the poem you recited aloud before? Asked Chang Zizai. Apologies, senior. I only heard about it from my father when I was a child, and I only remember that much, Jiang Hao said apologetically. What about your father now? Chang Zizai asked. Jiang Hao lowered his head and didn't answer. I apologize for being too abrupt, Chang Zizai said. Who do you think will shine the most in this Dao conference? Jiang Hao turned to look at the highest position where people were beginning to appear. Chapter 433. Now truly a senior. The central square was incredibly vast. There were forests and lakes around and a long river ran through the surroundings. Many sects were located behind some of the forests, but they all had a view of the central arena. Those with lower cultivation were provided with a formation to watch the center area. In the Dao conference there were arts and philosophies. But mostly, it was a competition of cultivation techniques, including all aspects like formations, alchemy, and talismans. In a corner of the forest, there was a raised platform with seats and an open space. It was where the Heavenly Note sect was located. Chu Chuan stood in the open space and looked toward the highest platform. As various major sects arrived, the strong members of the Bright Moon sect gradually revealed themselves. On the platform, figures appeared one after another, and then starlight enveloped the platform as a young girl descended from the sky. She was dressed in a blue and white gown and was surrounded by starlight, which dimmed the heavens and the earth. She drew the attention of everyone present. Chu Chuan was stunned. At this moment he finally understood what Jiang Hao had meant. The talent and status of Chu Jie surpassed his expectations. He felt that Chu Jie was unattainable and beyond reach. This was a gap in status. Chu Jie was the bright starlight in an immortal sect, while he was just an ordinary sect disciple of a remote demonic sect. The gap between them was as vast as the galaxy. She's incredible, Chu Chuan said with a smile. Beast, where's the food? Xiaoli looked around. Behind them, Mu Qi looked at Chu Jia with some disbelief. She still hasn't reached the foundation building stage. Han Ming was also amazed. The rumors seemed to have some basis. They all knew the rumors, and although they hadn't been sure at first, it seemed that the Bright Moon sect did have other plans. At this moment, Lu Xingqian arrived with his group. He respectfully greeted the three individuals at the highest position. Greetings, masters. What's the situation? The leading man in black asked. He was Cheng Lu, the head of the law enforcement hall. I investigated it. It seems that someone leaked the information secretly, Lu Xingqian said. What is it? Cheng Lu asked. He was responsible for everything at this time. Although rumors were not always reliable, they still needed to investigate them to feel at ease. Even if they couldn't do anything, they had to at least try. Lu Xingqian looked around and whispered, Heavenly Dao Foundation Establishment. Heavenly Dao Foundation Establishment? None of the three understood. It said that it follows the heavenly principles and brings blessings to the common people, Lu Xingqian said. Where did you hear this news? Cheng Lu asked. One of the Bright Moon sect disciples mentioned it. It's only known to a very small circle of people, and it seems that anyone interested can find out, Lu Xingqian said. Cheng Lu frowned. It seems that we are still ignorant, he said helplessly. They really didn't understand the Heavenly Dao Foundation establishment, so they couldn't really make sense of the situation. They could only take it one step at a time for now. The little girl is talented. It is no wonder the entire Bright Moon sect admires her, Chang Zizai said. Jiang Hao could also feel that Chu Jia had a certain affinity with the heavens and the earth. Indeed, she was suitable for the Heavenly Dao Foundation establishment, as she herself was like a vast and brilliant galaxy. She was qualified to accommodate the great blessing of heaven and earth. At this moment, the Bright Moon sect announced the start of the Dao conference. Jiang Hao noticed that they were competing in many things. It wasn't just about the cultivation realm but also their mental state, formations, alchemy, and more. Even talismans were being compared. What surprised Jiang Hao was that they could suppress or temporarily enhance their cultivation here at whim. They could either suppress or enhance it, but enhancing it required using a particular magical treasure. Jiang Hao first focused on the group making talismans. There weren't many people there. Then he turned to look at the place where the people from the Heavenly Note sect were gathered. He saw Xiaoli running around with the spirit beast. She was likely looking for food. What was she here for? Jiang Hao thought that his master must be helpless. No one could control her. They could only let her be. As time passed, light began to appear below. It was accompanied by exclamations from the crowd as some individuals began to glow radiantly. Jiang Hao felt that some sort of power was gradually appearing. It seemed that the Bright Moon sect was getting ready for the Heavenly Dao Foundation establishment. Once it began, it couldn't be stopped. They had to move forward with it. Jiang Hao looked around but didn't find anything interesting. He wanted to see the power of the Soul Ascension Realm cultivators, but they weren't here yet. Chang Zizai often talked to him, so he had to keep up with the conversation. What are you doing, Chang Zizai? Why did you bring a young person up here? Asked a woman suddenly. She wore a beige gown and a green gauze shawl. She looked very classy. Senior Qingshan? Chang Zizai was surprised. Did the Clear Sky School send you? I didn't expect that a waste like you would come from the Astronomical Academy, Qingshan said mockingly and sat down. I heard that your sect has a disciple with the heart of a sage. Is he here too? Chang Zizai asked. Jiang Hao's heart skipped a beat. Is that Shang'an? No. He won't leave the sect so easily. Qingshan shook her head and then looked at Jiang Hao. She looked puzzled. How could an ordinary disciple come here? Senior, there seems to be a misunderstanding, Chang Zizai said hurriedly. These two are not from my academy. They are guests invited by the Bright Moon sect, though I wish they were from my academy. Jiang Hao greeted her politely. Greetings, Senior. I am Qingshan of the Clear Sky School. I don't know which sect you two are from, Qingshan said. No one dared to question someone in the high seat. These two looked like ordinary disciples in the Foundation establishment realm, but something was strange. We are just humble wandering cultivators, said Jiang Hao. Qingshan frowned slightly but didn't ask further questions. Instead, she planned to find out about it secretly. At this moment, some disciples from the Bright Moon sect approached them. They were tasked with serving tea to the guests. Han led the way. She was serving tea to the others. When she saw Jiang Hao, she was startled. She bowed hurriedly. "Greetings, senior. I apologize for unintentionally offending you before. Please forgive me." Jiang Hao shook his head and didn't take it to heart. He didn't want to hold grudges against anyone. This surprised Qingshan. After they were served the tea, she followed Han out. "Wait a moment, girl. Do you need anything, senior?" Han was puzzled. "Do you know that person?" Qingshan asked. "We've met once," Han said. "Why is he sitting here?" Qingshan was worried that the person was of questionable background and could affect the gathering. Everyone, even the Clear Sky School, wanted the Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment to be a success. The only regret Qingshan had was that the one achieving the Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment wasn't from their sect. If they had such a disciple, they would also go all out. According to the list, they shouldn't be here, but did they come here suddenly? Yes. They are friends invited by Senior Si Cheng. Qingshan was surprised. Senior Si Cheng? The Senior Si Cheng? Han nodded. That should be fine then. Qingshan was shocked. She turned toward Jiang Hao and the woman beside him. It was no wonder she couldn't figure them out. But why did he refer to himself as a junior? On a high mountain, several old men looked down below. Their brows furrowed slightly. Are there any other strong individuals or special people on the scene? Everything seems stable. Do we need to go and check? No need. We still have to prevent any accidents. The Saint Bandits are still lurking, and they may want to sabotage the Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment. Where did they come from anyway? Perhaps the deep sea. Chapter 434, Dominating the Weak. After Qingshan returned to her seat, Jiang Hao had a strange feeling that she might have misunderstood something. He then turned to look at Hong Yuye, who had been staring at something for long enough now. Following her gaze, he saw Xiaoli wandering around. She was probably restless because she hadn't found any food. Jiang Hao didn't pay much attention to Xiaoli and instead tried to locate the disciples from the Clear Sky School. Although the senior members of the Clear Sky School were present, he didn't want to approach them. That would be inappropriate. After observing for a while, he still couldn't spot anyone from the Clear Sky School. One day had passed, but there was no significant progress. He hadn't found anyone from the end of all things yet. However, cries of astonishment frequently erupted from the crowd below. Even people like Chang Zizai often expressed admiration. Indeed, the younger generation possessed limitless potential, while the old folks like them were stubborn and stuck to the paths paved by their ancestors. Jiang Hao also wanted to follow the old path, but what he lacked was time. At this moment, a figure shot up into the sky, and a group of people chased after them. Are they competing in speed? Qingshan was surprised as she watched the figure in the sky. It seems like they are. Chang Zizai sighed. They aren't taking their job seriously. The Bright Moon sect even arranged for such competitions. Is it the light and dust again? Qingshan chuckled. How many times has the Astronomical Academy's light and dust technique been ridiculed? Jiang Hao looked into the distance and saw the same Astronomical Academy disciple from before. He was still using the light and dust technique, albeit a slightly improved version. However, he was still lagging behind. Is that the light and dust technique? Hong Yuye watched He-Do with curiosity. It should be. Jiang Hao nodded. He was also surprised when he first saw it. Have you heard of it? Qingshan approached them. The light and dust technique was first learned by someone from the Astronomical Academy from an unknown source. It's said to be extremely powerful. Unfortunately, no one in other sects has learned it yet. What do you mean by no one has ever learned it? Chang Zizai asked. He-Do told me that he saw someone using the light and dust technique perfectly. Even Han saw it. That proves that our sect is not wrong. How many times has your sect said the same thing? Qingshan asked. It seemed like the Astronomical Academy had been humiliated because of the light and dust technique. However, he had no intention of using it again. He had only used it before because he had no other choice. Seeing that it was getting dark, Hong Yuye stood up. Jiang Hao got up to follow. Whenever Chang Zizai was about to speak, the two of them disappeared in an instant. He was puzzled. Qingshan and some others felt the same way. Silently, they vanished without a trace. Many people breathed a sigh of relief. They didn't want to provoke those two. At the Twin City Peak, tables and chairs appeared around Hong Yuya. She sat down and Jiang Hao brewed some tea. The tea had not been used for a while, so there was still plenty left. When he finished brewing the tea, it was already nighttime. Jiang Hao sat down and took out the stone tablet. He wanted to see if there were any messages. Sure enough, Gui and the others were online. Text appeared on the stone tablet. Jiang Hao was speechless. Without entering, he couldn't chat with others. He hadn't participated after the first time. He probably wouldn't enter the chat unless there was something important. So far, he hadn't discovered anything. He could remain mysterious as long as he could stay out of sight. The more people he interacted with, the easier it would be for his identity to get exposed. That would be troublesome. For now, it was good as it was. Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment won't be affected just because of rumors, Hong Yuya said suddenly. Jiang Hao looked up and saw Hong Yuya looking at the stone tablet. Does that mean the rumors don't affect it at all? If the person who is to achieve the Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment is affected by the rumors, then it might cause some damage, Hong Yuya said. Jiang Hao nodded. That needed a solid and unwavering mind to withstand the overwhelming force of heaven and earth. The stone tablet had more incoming messages. Holy medicine seeds? Jiang Hao was suddenly interested. The next day Jiang Hao arrived at the scene. He had used the excuse of finding the end of all things to come along with Hong Yuya. She had agreed, but their smile was somewhat unsettling. Fortunately, there were no more surprises. At the scene he looked at the rewards on both sides. Alchemy, talisman crafting, formations, forging, defense, understanding of magical arts and more. He spotted 3 seeds in total. Alchemy, forging, and formations all had seeds as the top rewards. Jiang Hao felt tempted, but he didn't know anything about them. He looked at the category of body techniques and found that the highest reward consisted of 3 items. 1 unknown holy medicine seed, 1 unknown bright moon sect cultivation technique manual, and 1 unknown pill. 3 to choose from. All he needed to do was to win. Jiang Hao understood the rules. By suppressing his cultivation at the Foundation establishment realm, he could participate in the competition. He needed to use his body technique to catch up with the Golden Core Realm cultivator at the front to be declared the winner. It feels like a game. He then asked some more questions related to the competition. He asked whether anyone had succeeded before. Unfortunately, no one had ever succeeded. After making sure that there was no one he recognized, he decided to participate. He was not worried about his fellow disciples from the Heavenly Note sect, but rather the people he knew from the Bright Moon sect. Because in everyone's eyes he was a senior. If he participated so suddenly, it might seem like he was trying to dominate others. It was better to be anonymous. Sometimes he envied the thick-skinned nature of the spirit beast. It didn't have any shame. Soon he became one of the participants in the competition. He was joined by 9 others. Ahead of them was a woman in the early stage of the Golden Core Realm. Dear fellow disciples, if you can surpass me, you will be eligible for the rewards. If you can maintain your position, you can freely choose the highest rewards. A reminder. I'm using my Golden Core Realm for this task. If your body technique isn't up to par, you can withdraw now, said the woman at the Golden Core Realm. Jiang Hao and the others remained silent. They waited for the competition to begin. Looking around, he noticed that quite a few people were suppressing their cultivation, with only 2 genuinely at the Foundation establishment realm. It was a little like dominating the weak, indeed. However, a holy medicine seed would benefit him, so he aimed to obtain it. It all came down to who had a deeper understanding of body techniques. Chapter 435. He must be a senior from my academy. On the high seat, Chang Zizai felt somewhat disappointed when he noticed that Jiang Hao hadn't arrived. He always felt like there was something more to discover with him. It might not be significant to others, but it was crucial to him. 1 sentence from him had made their morning readings better. Such a person happened to be a senior at that. Otherwise, there were many ways to get him to join the academy. Chang Zizai, are your people still competing in movement techniques? Asked Qingshan. Probably not. I heard they were badly defeated and going there would just result in ridicule. Everyone would say scholars should go back to their books, Chang Zizai said helplessly. Then he looked curious. Why are you suddenly asking about this? Some of our sect's people also competed, and some elders asked me to keep an eye on a disciple. Unexpectedly, he went to compete in movement technique. It seems he finds that interesting, Qingshan said in annoyance. It is said that one disciple only studied for less than 2 years and then escaped from the sect, and he's still missing. I remember he told his master that he wanted to play hide and seek, and then they couldn't find him. I'm a bit worried that the same thing might happen this time. Why would disciples of Clear Sky School escape? Chang Zizai couldn't understand. Qingshan had no idea what those people were thinking. At this moment, they looked at the area where the movement technique competition was taking place. Sure enough, they saw a man with extraordinary bearing and an air of ease about him. Chang Zizai was stunned for a moment. Why are there people from the academy? His gaze fell on a woman. She was also a scholar who sought knowledge and enlightenment. He was surprised. Then he saw the others around her, which shocked him even more. Isn't that disciple Jiang? Qingshan stared at him. He was still using his cultivation realm at the late stage of the foundation establishment realm. Why was that senior here? Was a movement technique competition really that interesting? They paid attention to the competition. Meanwhile, Hua Han came to serve tea once again. When she saw the seniors watching the competition so seriously, she looked in that direction. She saw Jiang Hao and stopped to watch. Who do you think will win? The seniors discussed. Jiang Hao's participation had made the competition more interesting. Of course that disciple. After all, we can't lower ourselves to bullying children, someone said helplessly. It's hard to say. Movement techniques don't necessarily depend on high cultivation. Many people specialize in agility like Light and Dust from the Astronomical Academy. That's why they were the weakest and the slowest, said a man carrying a sword. Chang Zizai was speechless. He had been ridiculed so many times because of the worthless disciples. If this disciple Jiang loses, won't he be embarrassed? Even if he wins, it's nothing special, said a woman. Hua Han didn't speak. In theory that was correct, but it depended on how this senior would win. I don't know about the others, but I'm sure Light and Dust technique will fall behind. Light and Dust technique is famous, so he won't be the last. Chang Zizai's face changed, but he couldn't refute them. He had to stop those old men from making fun of the Light and Dust technique. It had become a constant joke now. At this moment, Jiang Hao looked ahead. He was ready to start. Suddenly, a spell bound them, and then the spell dissipated. In an instant, everyone rushed. Jiang Hao didn't fall behind. However, he didn't rush to exert himself but instead followed the others with the same calm and ease as Light and Dust taught him. But what surprised him was that a woman next to him used a spell somewhat similar to his. Light and Dust from the Astronomical Academy? Jiang Hao guessed. The woman also looked at Jiang Hao with some astonishment. She felt that the Light and Dust technique he used was somewhat similar and yet different. She couldn't describe it. At this moment, Jiang Hao looked at a young man on the right. He had a smile on his face, and his aura displayed a foundation establishment realm cultivation. Yet he seemed as free as the wind. He seemed unbound and unrestricted. Pretty impressive. It seemed that agility was also related to one's state of mind. You guys are a bit slow. I'll leave you behind, he said, then quickly moved ahead. The remaining people were struggling to catch up. Jiang Hao smiled and suddenly felt that this was getting interesting. No matter who his opponent was, it didn't affect his inner peace. His steps were steady and balanced, and his aura was restrained. The scholars from the Astronomical Academy felt somewhat helpless. They thought this time they could earn others' respect. The woman from before wanted to greet her fellow disciple nearby and let him continue, but when she looked at the person next to her, she was stunned. There was a faint light on him as if merging with sunlight yet appearing as tiny as dust. In the next moment he disappeared and then it seemed like he reappeared around them. Under the sunlight he seemed to be everywhere and nowhere. Is that really the Light and Dust? For a moment she was rooted to the spot. She forgot to even compete. Her gaze was locked on Jiang Hao. In just a few blinks he had already reached the front. He stood on the same line as the leading two. At the high seat, the powerful seniors were stunned when they saw Jiang Hao use the Light and Dust technique. Some felt that he was intentionally trying to lose. It was even more humiliating for the Astronomical Academy. But when Jiang Hao's figure was covered by the light and seemed to be everywhere, they were all stunned, especially Chang Zizai. He looked at Jiang Hao with excitement without saying a word. He knew what technique that was. Light and Dust technique. The real deal. I understand now, Chang Zizai said excitedly. This senior might be an elder from our academy. He recently returned from seclusion, comprehended the light and dust technique, and encouraged us to continue our morning readings. He must be from our academy. Who else would use that technique? Maybe he saw that our academy was being insulted by all of you, so he personally chose to compete to let you all witness the glory of the light and dust technique. Everyone felt that it made sense. Don't praise yourselves too much. It's obvious that this senior has comprehended the light and dust technique and is kindly demonstrating it to your academy, which is in such a sorry state, Qingshan said. It's definitely our academy's senior, Chang Zizai insisted. At this moment, Jiang Hao was still chasing behind someone. He observed the man whose blood was burning strangely. The man exuded a hostile aura as if he wanted to surpass the Golden Core Realm cultivator ahead of him. That wasn't easy. Jiang Hao could clearly feel that the Golden Core Realm cultivator's movement technique was flawless. Your movement technique makes me feel like I've seen it somewhere before, yet it also feels unfamiliar. But it doesn't matter, the young man from the Clear Sky School said as he moved on. Jiang Hao paid no attention to him and continued to observe the man with the blood aura. The man noticed someone overtaking him and his gaze turned hostile. Something strange. Jiang Hao used his daily appraisal ability. That you're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.